The water glass shattered against imported marble, and Lena Moore's entire world shattered with it. She didn't know the man staring up at her through the chaos, didn't know his name was whispered in back rooms where men made deals that ended lives. She saw only expensive fabric ruined, another mistake she couldn't afford, another reason she'd never escape the exhaustion crushing her. Marco DeLuca saw something else entirely. A woman who apologized while her hands shook from hunger, whose eyes held intelligence that didn't belong in a waitress uniform, whose invisibility was about to end. One spilled drink. One wrong man. Everything changed. If you're ready to discover how one moment can rewrite your entire existence, stay with me until the very end. And when you finish this story, hit that like button and comment with your city so I can see how far Lena's journey has traveled across the world. The restaurant smelled like money Lena Moore would never have. She moved through Sapphire's dining room with practiced invisibility, her feet aching in shoes held together with glue and determination, her smile plastered on despite the exhaustion that had seeped into her bones. 26 years old, and she felt ancient. 2 shifts back to back, 6 days a week, and still her bank account hovered dangerously close to zero. The dream of nursing school had faded to a fantasy she barely let herself remember. "Table 12 needs water," Marcus, the head waiter, snapped as he passed. "And try not to look so miserable. The clients can smell desperation." Lena bit back the response burning on her tongue. She needed this job, needed the tips that sometimes, rarely, made the difference between eating and not eating. So she straightened her shoulders, lifted the crystal pitcher, and wove through tables where people spent more on wine than she made in a month. Table 12 sat in the corner, partially hidden by decorative screens that created an illusion of privacy in the open space. Lena approached with her eyes down, her movements efficient. She'd learned early that wealthy men preferred their service silent and unobtrusive. "Water, sir?" She didn't wait for an answer, already reaching for the glass. Her hands trembled, low blood sugar probably, she'd skipped lunch again, and the pitcher tilted too far, too fast. Time slowed as water arced through the air in a perfect, catastrophic curve. It hit the man's shoulder, his chest, spreading across fabric that probably cost more than her rent. The glass slipped from Lena's numb fingers and shattered against the marble floor with a sound like a gunshot. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm so—" The words tumbled out in a rush as Lena dropped to her knees, reaching for the broken glass with shaking hands. This was it. She'd be fired. Marcus had warned her one more mistake, just one more. "Don't." The voice cut through her panic, low and controlled, carrying an authority that made her freeze. A hand appeared in her line of vision, tanned, strong, with a scar across the knuckles that spoke of violence, and grasped her wrist gently but firmly. "You'll cut yourself." Lena looked up, and the apology died on her lips. The man was beautiful in a way that seemed dangerous, all sharp angles and dark eyes that watched her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Black hair swept back from a face that belonged in old paintings of fallen angels, too perfect, too commanding, too aware. He wore his ruined suit like armor, and even soaked with water, he radiated power that made the expensive restaurant feel cheap in comparison. "I'm sorry," Lena whispered, hating how small her voice sounded. "I'll pay for the dry cleaning. You're shaking." He hadn't released her wrist. His thumb pressed against her pulse point, and she knew he could feel how fast her heart was racing. "When did you last eat?" The question caught her off guard. What?" "Eat. Food. When?" Heat flooded Lena's cheeks. "That's none of your business." Something flickered in those dark eyes. Amusement, maybe, or curiosity. "You're about to pass out in the middle of an expensive restaurant. I'm making it my business." "I'm fine." Lena pulled her wrist free and stood, her legs unsteady. The room tilted slightly, but she locked her knees and forced herself still. "Please, just let me clean this up and I'll get you—" "Sit down." "I can't. I have other tables. Sit. Down." Not loud, but absolute. The kind of voice that expected obedience and always received it. Lena found herself sinking into the chair across from him before she'd made the conscious decision to move. Around them, other diners were staring. Marcus appeared at the table's edge, his face flushed with fury. "Miss Moore, what the hell do you think you're—" I'm having dinner with her. The man's voice cut across Marcus's tirade like a blade. Is that going to be a problem? Marcus's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Up close, Lena could see the moment he recognized something in the stranger's face. Some warning she couldn't read. The head waiter's anger transformed into fear so quickly it was almost comical. No problem at all, Mr. DeLuca. Marco DeLuca. He never looked away from Lena. We'll have the special, both of us, and bread, immediately. Of course, right away, sir. Marcus practically bowed before disappearing. Lena stared at Marco DeLuca, her mind racing. You didn't have to do that. I'm going to be fired anyway. You just delayed. You're not fired. He leaned back in his chair, utterly relaxed, like he hadn't just been doused with ice water. Tell me your name. Why? Because I asked. The arrogance should have made her angry. Instead, Lena felt something unfamiliar stir in her chest, a spark of defiance, of wanting to push back against someone who clearly expected the world to bend to his will. Lena Moore. Lena, he said it slowly, like he was tasting each syllable. You work here long? Long enough to know I can't afford to sit and chat with customers, no matter how expensive their suits are. His mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. You have a smart mouth for someone who just dumped water all over a stranger. You have a lot of demands for someone who's dripping wet in a 5-star restaurant. This time he did smile, and it transformed his face from intimidating to devastating. There she is. There who is? The woman hiding behind all that exhaustion and fear. Marco tilted his head, studying her with an intensity that made Lena feel naked. How long have you been running on empty, Lena Moore? The question hit too close to truth. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. He gestured to her hands, still trembling slightly on the table. You're smart. I can see it in your eyes, the way you measure words before speaking. So tell me, what's a woman with intelligence doing serving water to people who don't even see her? Lena opened her mouth to deflect, to lie, but something about his directness demanded honesty. I'm trying to survive. Not all of us have the luxury of philosophy. Philosophy. Marco's laugh was low and genuine. Is that what you think this is? Isn't it? Rich man plays games with the help, feels magnanimous for buying her dinner? If I wanted to feel magnanimous, I'd donate to charity. He leaned forward, his voice dropping. I buy you dinner because you interest me. And before you ask why, I don't know yet, but I intend to find out. A waiter appeared with bread, warm, fresh, the scent making Lena's stomach clench with hunger she'd been ignoring for hours. Marco watched as she reached for a piece, watched as she forced herself to eat slowly, despite wanting to devour the entire basket. When did you last eat? He asked again. Yesterday morning. The words slipped out before she could stop them. His expression didn't change, but something hardened in his eyes. Why? Because food costs money, and money is something I don't have. Lena met his gaze directly. Happy now? Got your answer? No? Marco's voice was quiet. Now I have more questions. The special arrived, sea bass with roasted vegetables, plated like art. Lena stared at it, at food she'd served 1,000 times but never tasted, and felt tears burn behind her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. Eat, Marco said softly. We'll talk after. So Lena ate. She tried to maintain dignity, tried not to show how hungry she was, but the first bite broke something inside her. She ate like someone afraid the plate would be snatched away, like someone who'd forgotten what it felt like to be full. Marco ate too, but slowly, watching her with that unwavering attention that should have made her uncomfortable. Instead, it made her feel seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. Tell me about nursing school, he said when her plate was half empty. Lena's fork froze halfway to her mouth. How did you have medical textbooks in your bag. He nodded toward her battered backpack slumped against the wall. Old editions, highlighted extensively. Either you're studying or you used to. She set down her fork carefully. Used to. Can't afford it anymore. How much do you need? Excuse me? To go back. How much? Lena laughed, but it came out bitter. More than you want to hear about over dinner. Try me. 40,000 for tuition, another 20 for living expenses while I study full-time. Add in books, certification fees? She shook her head. $65,000 to become someone who helps people instead of just serving them food. Marco didn't flinch at the number. That's your dream? Nursing? It was. Now it's just another thing I can't have. Lena pushed her plate away, suddenly unable to eat more despite her hunger. Why are you asking me this? Why do you care? Maybe I'm curious what makes someone keep fighting when everything's stacked against them. Or maybe you're bored, and I'm tonight's entertainment. You don't believe that. Marco's voice carried certainty that made her want to prove him wrong. I don't know what I believe anymore. Lena stood abruptly, her chair scraping against marble. Thank you for dinner. It was kind, but I should get back to work. Sit down, Lena. Don't order me around. Then ask politely, and I'll do the same. He gestured to the chair. Please, sit. I'm not finished. Against her better judgment, Lena sat. Finished with what? Getting to know you. Why? You'll leave here tonight, go back to whatever expensive life you lead, and forget the broke waitress who spilled water on you. Marco's smile was sharp. You think I forget people who interest me? I think rich men have short attention spans when it comes to women who can't offer them anything. And what makes you think you have nothing to offer? The question hung between them, loaded with meaning Lena couldn't quite parse. She studied Marco's face, looking for the trick, the angle, the inevitable disappointment. I should go, she said finally. You should, but you won't. Marco signaled to a passing waiter. Coffee, 2 cups. I really can't. Your shift ends in 20 minutes, I checked. You checked? Lena didn't know whether to be flattered or disturbed. How? I asked. He said it like it was simple, like everyone just asked for what they wanted and received it. Stay, talk to me. 20 minutes won't change your life. But Lena had the strangest feeling it might. The coffee came in delicate porcelain cups, rich and dark. Lena wrapped her hands around the warmth and tried to understand what was happening. Men like Marco DeLuca didn't notice women like her. They didn't buy them dinner or ask about their dreams. They certainly didn't sit in expensive restaurants making small talk with the help. What do you want from me? The question came out more vulnerable than she intended. Marco took a long sip of coffee before answering. Right now? Just conversation. Tomorrow? He shrugged. We'll see. Tomorrow? Have dinner with me. Somewhere nice. Where you're the guest, not the staff. Lena laughed, but it sounded hollow. Why would I do that? Because you're curious. Because I interest you as much as you interest me. Because you're tired of being invisible and I'm offering to see you. His eyes locked on hers. Because what do you have to lose? Everything, Lena thought. Her carefully maintained walls. Her determination to survive alone. Her certainty that needing anyone was weakness. I don't even know you, she said. Then let's fix that. One dinner. If you hate it, you never have to see me again. And if I like it? Marco's smile was dangerous. Then we'll have another one. Lena should have said no. Should have recognized the warning signs, the intensity, the presumption, the way he looked at her like she was something precious he intended to possess. But she was so tired of being alone, so exhausted from fighting every single day, and the way he watched her made her feel alive for the first time in years. One dinner, she heard herself say. That's all. That's all I'm asking. Marco pulled out his phone. Your number? Lena rattled it off, watching as he entered it with quick, efficient movements. Her phone buzzed a moment later, a text from an unknown number containing just an address and a time. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Wear whatever makes you feel beautiful. I don't own anything that makes me feel beautiful, Lena admitted. Marco stood, and she realized for the first time how tall he was, how completely he commanded space. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a business card, heavy cardstock, embossed lettering. Go here tomorrow at 2. Tell them Marco sent you. They'll take care of everything. I can't accept. You can. He laid the card on the table between them. Call it compensation for the dry cleaning. Call it whatever you need to call it. But show up tomorrow night, Lena. I want to see you again." Before she could respond, Marco was walking away, moving through the restaurant like he owned it, which, given the way staff practically bowed as he passed, he might. Lena picked up the card. Adriana's boutique. She'd walked past it 100 times, never daring to enter the kind of place where a single dress cost more than her monthly rent. "What the hell did you do?" Marcus appeared at her elbow, his voice tight with panic. "Do you have any idea who that was?" "Marco DeLuca." He said his name. Marco DeLuca owns half this city. Real estate, shipping, restaurants, including this one. Marcus grabbed her arm. "He doesn't have dinner with waitresses, Lena. He doesn't notice staff. But he noticed you. And that's either very good or very, very bad." Lena pulled her arm free. "He was just being nice. Men like Marco DeLuca aren't nice. They're interested. And when they're interested, people's lives change." Marcus lowered his voice. "Be careful. Whatever he's offering, there's always a price." Later, after her shift ended and she trudged back to her studio apartment in a building that should have been condemned, Lena lay in bed staring at Marco's business card. Marcus's warning echoed in her head, mixing with the memory of dark eyes that saw too much. She should throw the card away, should block the number, should recognize danger when it bought her dinner and asked about her dreams. Instead, she set an alarm for 1:30 and told herself she was just curious. One dress, one dinner, one night of feeling like someone worth noticing. What could it hurt? The boutique was nothing like Lena expected. She'd imagined cold, judgmental salespeople who take one look at her discount store jeans and ask her to leave. Instead, a woman with kind eyes and elegant silver hair greeted her the moment she walked through the door. "You must be Lena," Marco called ahead. She smiled warmly. "I'm Adriana. Come, we have much to do." "I don't need anything expensive," Lena started. "Just something simple for dinner." Marco was very specific about what he wanted. Adriana guided her toward the back of the store. "And what he wants is for you to feel extraordinary." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of fabric and soft lighting. Adriana brought dress after dress, each more beautiful than the last, never once making Lena feel inadequate or out of place. When Lena tried to check price tags, Adriana gently turned them away. "This is a gift," she said firmly. "Let yourself receive it." The dress they finally chose was midnight blue, simple but elegant, with a neckline that made Lena's modest curves look almost graceful. When she saw herself in the mirror, really saw herself, not the exhausted ghost she'd become, something shifted inside her chest. "Beautiful," Adriana murmured. "Now shoes." "I really can't." "You can." Adriana's voice was gentle, but firm. "Whatever fear you're carrying, leave it here. Tonight, you're not the girl who serves tables. You're the woman who walks through doors like she belongs there." By the time Lena left the boutique, she carried a garment bag and shoebox that contained more value than everything she owned combined. Adriana had also pressed a small makeup bag into her hands. Just a few basics, nothing you can't learn to use, and made Lena promise to enjoy herself. Back in her apartment, Lena hung the dress carefully and tried not to think about what it meant. Men like Marco didn't spend this kind of money on women they barely knew without expecting something in return. But what did he want? And why her, of all people? Her phone buzzed, a text from Marco's number. "Looking forward to tonight. My driver will pick you up at 7:30. "I can take the bus," Lena typed back. "You could, but you won't." A pause, then another message. "Let me do this, Lena. Let me give you one night where you don't have to struggle." Lena stared at the words, at the offer, at the danger wrapped in kindness. She should say no, should establish boundaries, should protect herself from whatever this was becoming. "Okay," she typed instead. 7:30. The car that arrived was sleek and black, the kind that whispered money so old it didn't need to shout. The driver, older, professional, with eyes that missed nothing, opened the door for her like she was someone important. "Miss Moore? I'm Vincent. Mr. DeLuca asked me to take care of you this evening." Lena slid into leather seats that probably cost more than her annual salary and tried not to feel like an imposter. The dress helped. Adriana's magic with makeup helped more. For the first time in years, Lena looked in the mirror and saw someone worth a second glance. The restaurant Vincent delivered her to wasn't like Sapphire. No bustling dining room or pretentious atmosphere. Instead, a small intimate space with maybe 10 tables, all empty except one. Marco stood when she entered, and the look in his eyes made Lena's breath catch. He wore a suit that fit like it was made for him, which it probably was. But it was the way he watched her cross the room that made her knees weak. Like she was the only person in the world. Like she mattered. "You look stunning," he said simply. "The dress is beautiful." Lena smoothed her hands over the fabric nervously. "Thank you for—" "I didn't compliment the dress. I complimented you." Marco pulled out her chair, his hand brushing her lower back for just a moment. "The dress is just fabric. You make it extraordinary." Lena sat because her legs wouldn't hold her anymore. "You rented out an entire restaurant?" "I wanted privacy, to talk to you without interruption." He settled across from her, perfectly relaxed. "Is that all right? It's insane." "Maybe." Marco's smile was slight. "Tell me I'm wrong for wanting you all to myself tonight." A waiter appeared, the only staff member Lena had seen, and poured wine without asking. Marco raised his glass. "To new beginnings, and women brave enough to start them." Lena clinked her glass against his, the crystal ringing soft and clear. The wine was excellent, rich and smooth, nothing like the cheap bottles she occasionally splurged on. "So," she said, trying to find her balance in this surreal situation, "do you always do this? Find struggling waitresses and sweep them off to private dinners?" "Never." Marco's voice was serious. "You're the first person I've noticed in a very long time, Lena. The first person who made me want to look closer." "Why? I'm nobody. Just another broke girl trying to survive in a city that eats people like me alive." "You're wrong." Marco leaned forward. "You're someone who keeps fighting when anyone else would quit. You're someone with dreams beaten down but not dead. You're someone who apologizes while starving rather than ask for help." He paused. "You're someone I want to know everything about." The intensity in his voice scared her. "You don't know me. Then tell me. Everything. Start wherever you want." So Lena did. Maybe it was the wine, or the way he listened like every word mattered, or the simple fact that she was so tired of carrying everything alone. She told him about nursing school, about dropping out when her mother got sick, about the hospital bills that ate her savings, about her mother's death 2 years ago, leaving Lena alone with debt and dreams that felt impossible. "I thought I could work my way back," she admitted. "Save enough to restart. But the math doesn't work. Every time I get ahead, something happens. The rent increases. I get sick. My car dies." She laughed bitterly. "I'm running in place, getting nowhere, watching everyone else move forward while I stay stuck." Marco listened without interrupting, his dark eyes never leaving her face. When she finally fell silent, he reached across the table and took her hand. "What if the math could work?" he asked quietly. "What do you mean?" "What if someone removed the obstacles, paid the debt, covered tuition, gave you space to breathe and build the life you want?" Lena pulled her hand back. "I'm not a charity case." "I never said you were." "Then what is this? Why would you help a stranger?" Marco was quiet for a long moment. "Do you believe in instinct, Lena? That feeling when you meet someone and just know they're going to matter?" "I don't know what I believe anymore. I believe in reading people, understanding what drives them, what they need, what they're capable of." He held her gaze. "You walked into my life by accident. But now that you're here, I don't want to let you disappear back into invisibility." "So you'll what? Buy me a new life?" "I'll give you the chance to build it yourself." Marco's voice was steady. "No strings, no expectations, just resources you need and freedom to use them." It sounded too good to be true. Men didn't offer this kind of help without wanting something. Lena had learned that lesson young and hard. "What do you want in return?" she asked bluntly. "Honesty." Marco's answer came without hesitation. "Time. The chance to know you better." He paused. "And maybe, eventually, something more. But that's your choice, not a condition." "You're asking me to trust you." "I'm asking you to trust yourself, to believe you're worth investing in." He signaled the waiter, who appeared with covered dishes. "For now, just have dinner with me. We'll worry about the rest later." The food was extraordinary. Course after course of flavors Lena had never experienced. Marco asked about her childhood, her interests, the books she read when she had time. He didn't pry into the painful parts, seemed content to let her share what she wanted. But Lena found herself wanting to share. Something about Marco's quiet attention made words flow easier. She told him about loving science, about the satisfaction of understanding how bodies worked, about wanting to heal instead of just survive. "You'll be an excellent nurse," Marco said with absolute certainty. "How do you know?" "Because you care. Not abstractly, genuinely. You see people others overlook. That's a gift." "Speaking of overlooking people," Lena said carefully, "what do you do?" "Marcus said you own things, restaurants, real estate." "Among other interests." Marco's expression didn't change. "I invest in opportunities others miss, build businesses, solve problems." It wasn't really an answer, and they both knew it. Lena filed that away, the evasion, the way he controlled information. But she didn't push. Not yet. "Tell me something real about you," she said instead. "Not business. Something true." Marco considered her request seriously. "I'm alone, surrounded by people, but alone. Everyone wants something from me. Money, access, favors. No one asks what I want." He met her eyes. "Until you." "I didn't ask what you want." "No, you asked why I care. That's better." His smile was soft. "You treat me like a person, not a resource. Do you know how rare that is?" Lena thought about power and loneliness, about how wealth might insulate but also isolate. "Is that why you noticed me? Because I don't want anything?" "I noticed you because you're real in a world of performances. Because you fight without expecting applause. Because—" He stopped, shook his head. "Because I looked at you and felt something I haven't felt in years." "What?" "Curious. Interested. Alive." The words hung between them, honest and vulnerable in a way that made Lena's chest ache. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that this wasn't manipulation or some elaborate game. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of me? Of this? Of wanting something I can't have? Of letting myself hope and being disappointed again?" Marco stood and moved around the table, pulling her gently to her feet. "Dance with me." "There's no music." "Then we'll make our own." He pulled out his phone, and soft jazz filled the intimate space. "One dance, Lena. That's all I'm asking." His hand settled at her waist, warm and steady. Lena let herself be drawn close, let herself relax against someone for the first time in years. Marco moved with easy confidence, leading her through steps she followed instinctively. "I meant what I said," he murmured against her hair. "No pressure, no expectations. Just let me help you. Let me be part of your life. See where it goes." Lena pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "And if it goes nowhere? Then you'll have your degree and your future, and I'll have the satisfaction of helping someone extraordinary achieve their dreams." His thumb traced her cheekbone gently. "But I don't think it'll go nowhere." "Why?" "Because I see how you look at me. Like you're afraid to want this but can't help yourself." Marco's voice dropped lower. "I'm afraid too, Lena. But I'm more afraid of letting you walk away." The honesty broke something inside her. Lena rose on her toes and kissed him, soft, brief, testing. Marco went very still, then his hand cupped the back of her head and he deepened the kiss with a hunger that made her gasp. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Lena felt the world shift beneath her feet. "Stay," Marco whispered. "Not here, not tonight, but in my life. Let me take care of you." "I don't need taking care of." "Everyone needs someone, Lena, even the strongest fighters." His forehead rested against hers. "Let me be yours." She should say no, should recognize this for what it probably was, a wealthy man's fascination with something novel, something that would fade when reality set in. But the way he held her felt real, the way he listened felt genuine, and she was so tired of fighting alone. "One condition," Lena said. "Name it." "Honesty, always. If this changes, if you want out, you tell me. Don't just disappear." "I won't disappear." Marco's voice carried absolute conviction. "I promise you that." It wasn't enough. Promises were cheap, easily broken, but looking into his eyes, Lena chose to believe, chose to take the risk. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Marco's smile was brilliant, transforming his face from intense to joyful. He kissed her again, slower this time, like he had all the time in the world. And for the first time in years, Lena let herself imagine a future that didn't include constant struggle. Let herself hope for something more than mere survival. She had no idea that choosing Marco DeLuca would change everything, that his help came with shadows she couldn't yet see, that being seen by him meant being drawn into a world where danger and devotion walked hand in hand. But that night, wrapped in his arms with soft music playing, Lena Moore let herself be just a woman. Not broke, not struggling, not invisible, just seen, just wanted, just enough. And it felt like everything. The transformation happened so gradually that Lena didn't notice she was drowning until she was already under. 3 days after that first dinner, an envelope arrived at her apartment. Thick, expensive paper containing a bank card with her name embossed in silver and a handwritten note in Marco's precise script. For immediate needs, we'll discuss the rest over breakfast. My driver will collect you at 9. Lena stared at the card, her hands shaking. She should return it, should maintain boundaries. Instead, she checked the balance on her phone and nearly dropped it when she saw the number. $50,000. More money than she'd seen in her entire life, sitting in an account with her name on it. Her phone rang immediately, as if Marco had been waiting for her to check. It's too much, Lena said without preamble. It's a start. Marco's voice was warm, amused. Good morning, by the way. Marco, I can't accept this. It's yours, no strings, remember? Pay off your debts. Buy groceries. Sleep without worrying about rent. A pause. Let yourself breathe, Lena. That's all I'm asking. Why are you doing this? Because I can. Because you need it. Because watching you struggle when I have the means to help feels wrong. His tone shifted, became softer. And because I want to see what you become when survival isn't consuming all your energy. Lena closed her eyes, fighting tears. I don't know how to accept this. Start with breakfast. Say yes to my driver. We'll figure out the rest together. So she said yes, and then kept saying yes, to breakfast meetings where Marco asked about her dreams and actually listened, to dinners where he introduced her to food and wine, and conversation that made her feel intelligent instead of inferior, to quiet evenings in his penthouse where they talked until dawn about everything and nothing. 2 weeks became a month. Marco paid off her debts without fanfare, handed her enrollment papers for nursing school already processed, set up accounts for tuition and living expenses. When Lena protested, he simply said, let me do this. And she found herself unable to refuse. You're avoiding your shift, Marcus cornered her one evening at Sapphire, his expression worried. You've called out 6 times this month. I'm sorry, I've been with him, with Marco DeLuca. Marcus grabbed her arm, his voice urgent. Lena, do you know what people are saying? That you're his new obsession, that he's what? Helping me? Caring about me? Lena pulled free. Why is that so hard for everyone to believe? Because men like Marco don't help people. They use them. Marcus's face was grim. I've worked in his restaurants for 15 years. I've seen what happens to people who get close to him. They disappear, Lena, or they change into something unrecognizable. You're being dramatic. Am I? Ask yourself why a man with his power and wealth is suddenly so interested in a waitress with nothing to offer. The words stung because they echoed Lena's own fears, the doubts she pushed down every time Marco looked at her like she was precious. Maybe I do have something to offer, she said quietly. Maybe I'm worth more than you think. Marcus's expression softened. I'm not saying you're not worth it. I'm saying be careful. Men like him don't let go easily once they decide they want something. That conversation haunted Lena through her next date with Marco. Dinner at his penthouse, just the two of them and a chef who prepared courses then disappeared discreetly. Marco had been teaching her about wine, about art, about the world beyond her small experience. Tonight he seemed distracted, tension radiating from him in waves. Something's wrong, Lena said, setting down her fork. Talk to me. Marco's smile didn't reach his eyes. Just business. Nothing you need to worry about. That's not an answer. Lena reached across the table, covering his hand with hers. You said honesty, remember? That was my condition. He stared at their joined hands for a long moment before speaking. There's a situation. Someone challenging my territory. Making threats. His jaw tightened. It's handled. But it reminded me how dangerous my world can be. Dangerous how? Lena. Marco's voice held warning. Some things are better left unknown. Don't do that. Don't shut me out when things get complicated. She squeezed his hand. You wanted me in your life. That means the real parts too, not just expensive dinners and easy conversation. The real parts might scare you away. Then give me the chance to decide for myself. Marco was quiet for so long Lena thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. I'm not just a businessman, Lena. The restaurants, the real estate, those are legitimate. But there are other interests, other operations that exist in spaces the law doesn't reach. You're saying you're a criminal. I'm saying I operate in gray areas. I solve problems conventional methods can't touch. I protect what's mine through whatever means necessary. His eyes met hers, unflinching. Does that change things between us? It should have. Lena should have been horrified, should have run back to her safe, struggling life. Instead, she thought about how Marco treated her, with respect, genuine interest, care that felt real. She thought about the man who listened when she talked, who wanted to know her thoughts and dreams, who made her feel valued. I don't know, she admitted. I need to think about it. Fair enough. Marco stood, his movements tense. Vincent can take you home whenever you're ready. Marco, wait. Lena caught his hand as he turned away. I'm not running. I just need time to process. His expression softened slightly. Take all the time you need. But know this. I would never hurt you, Lena. Whatever else I am, whatever I do, you're safe with me. Always. The conviction in his voice made her believe him, even as her rational mind screamed warnings. That night, lying alone in her apartment, the nicer one Marco had insisted on, in a building with working heat and locks that actually secured. Lena tried to sort through her feelings. Marco had been honest, finally. He lived in shadows, made decisions that probably cost lives, wielded power through methods she couldn't condone. But he'd also given her back her future, saw her when everyone else looked through her, made her feel like she mattered in a world that had told her she was disposable. Was that enough to overlook the darkness? Her phone buzzed, a text from Marco. I understand if you need distance, but I hope you'll give me the chance to explain further. Coffee tomorrow? No pressure. Lena stared at the message, her thumb hovering over the keyboard. Common sense said to cut ties now, before she got deeper into whatever this was becoming. But her heart, the part that had been hollow and aching for so long, said something different. Coffee sounds good. 10 a.m.? His response came immediately. I'll send Vincent. And Lena? Thank you for not disappearing. The next morning, Vincent drove her to a small cafe far from Marco's usual expensive haunts. Marco sat at a corner table, looking exhausted, his usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled. When he saw her, relief flooded his face. You came, he said simply. I said I would. Lena slid into the seat across from him. I don't break promises. Marco ordered coffee for both of them, his movements careful, like he was afraid of spooking her. When the server left, he leaned forward, his voice low and earnest. I want to explain something. What I do, the work that exists outside the law, it's not random violence or senseless crime. I protect businesses from exploitation. I mediate disputes the courts can't touch. I ensure certain rules are followed in a world that operates beyond legal reach. You're trying to make it sound noble. I'm trying to make you understand context. I don't hurt innocent people, Lena. I don't traffic in suffering, but I do make hard decisions. I do use force when necessary. He met her eyes. And I won't apologize for that because it's kept me alive and successful in a world that eats the weak. What about the threats you mentioned? The situation you're handling? Marco's expression darkened. A rival organization moved into my territory, started pressuring my businesses, hurting people under my protection. I gave them chances to back down peacefully. They refused. He paused. So I'm removing them, permanently. Which means what, exactly? which means you don't need details. Just know that people who threaten what's mine face consequences. Lena sipped her coffee, processing. Am I yours to protect now? Is that what this is? You've been mine since the moment you spilled water on me and apologized like your life depended on it. Marco's voice was soft but absolute. I just didn't know how deep it would go. That's insane. You can't claim someone after 2 weeks. Then tell me to walk away. Tell me you feel nothing, that this is just charity you're accepting. His hand covered hers on the table. Tell me you don't feel this connection every time we're together. Lena couldn't, because she did feel it. The pull, the certainty, the sense that Marco saw parts of her no one else bothered to look for. It was terrifying and exhilarating and completely overwhelming. I feel it, she whispered, but that doesn't mean I understand it. You don't have to understand everything right now. Just don't disappear on me. Marco's thumb traced circles on her palm. Stay. Keep letting me know you. Let this develop naturally. While you do dangerous things I don't want to know about? While I keep you separate from that world. Protected. Safe. His intensity sharpened. I won't let my business touch you, Lena. That's a promise I can make and keep. But promises, Lena was learning, were only as good as the circumstances that tested them. The first sign something was wrong came 3 days later. Lena was walking home from her first week of nursing classes, finally, actually studying again, her mind alive with information, when she noticed the car. Black sedan, tinted windows, following her for 3 blocks. She ducked into a crowded coffee shop and called Marco immediately. Someone's following me, she said without preamble, her voice shaking. Where are you? Marco's tone went cold and sharp. Lena gave him the address. Marco, who would not? Stay inside. Don't leave until Vincent arrives. He's 5 minutes away. You're scaring me. Good. Fear keeps you careful. A pause, then softer. You're safe, Lena. I won't let anyone touch you. Vincent arrived in 4 minutes, moving through the cafe with quick efficiency. He escorted Lena to the car, his eyes scanning constantly, his body positioned between her and potential threats. Mr. DeLuca's penthouse, he said shortly. He's waiting. Marco met them at his private elevator, pulling Lena into his arms the moment she stepped out. She felt him trembling, actual fear radiating through his controlled exterior. I'm okay, she said against his chest. Nothing happened. But it could have. Marco pulled back, his hands framing her face. This is exactly what I was trying to prevent. My world bleeding into yours. Whose car was it? The people I'm removing, making a point that they can reach you if they want. His expression was murderous. They just signed their death warrant. Lena should have been horrified, should have recognized the casual talk of killing as the red flag it was. Instead, she felt strangely calm, like some part of her had been waiting for this. The moment reality crashed through the fantasy. What happens now? She asked. Now you stay here. With me. Where I can protect you properly. I can't just move in with you. Why not? Marco's voice was reasonable, like he was discussing dinner plans instead of her entire life. You have classes nearby. Everything you need is here, and you're safe within these walls. Because it's crazy. We barely know each other. We know enough. His hand slid down to her shoulders. And unless you have a better solution for keeping you alive while I handle this situation, I'm not giving you a choice. The arrogance should have made her angry. Instead, Lena felt something else, a dark thrill at being claimed so completely, at mattering enough that Marco would demand instead of ask. How long? She asked quietly. A week? Maybe less? Just until the threat is eliminated. And then? Then you decide. Stay or go back to your apartment. But for now, humor me. Marco's voice softened. Please, Lena, let me know you're safe. So she stayed. And the week Marco promised stretched into 10 days of living in luxury she'd never imagined, of coming home from classes to find him waiting, of dinners where they talked about her studies and carefully avoided discussing what he did during the days. Tell me about your patients, Marco said one evening, both of them curled on his massive couch with wine and the city lights spread below. The people you'll help when you finish school. Lena described the clinical rotation she was learning about, the cases that fascinated her, the satisfaction of understanding how to heal. Marco listened with complete attention, asking intelligent questions, genuinely interested. You're going to be extraordinary at this, he said. You have the mind for it, the compassion. How do you know? Because I see how you analyze problems, how you care about outcomes beyond yourself. He brushed hair from her face. You're wasted serving tables, Lena. You were always meant for more. Is that why you noticed me? Because you saw potential? I noticed you because you were real. The potential just makes you more fascinating. Marco set down his wine, his expression serious. Can I ask you something? Always. Are you happy? Here, with me, living this strange temporary life? Lena considered the question honestly. I don't know if happy is the right word. I'm confused, overwhelmed, constantly wondering when the other shoe will drop. She met his eyes. But I'm also more alive than I've been in years. So maybe that's its own kind of happy. What would make you fully happy? Understanding what this is, what we are. She gestured between them. You take care of me, protect me, give me everything I need, but you never ask for anything in return. I ask for your time, your company, your trust. That's not enough for most men. Marco's smile was slight, dangerous. I'm not most men. And when I want more from you, Lena, you'll know. There won't be any confusion. The promise in his voice made heat pool in her stomach. They'd been careful, Marco especially. Physical affection, but never pushing beyond kisses, like he was determined to prove this wasn't just about sex. What if I want more now? Lena asked, surprising herself with her boldness. Marco went very still. You need to be sure. Because once we cross that line, I won't be able to pretend this is casual. I won't be able to let you go easily. Who said anything about casual? Lena moved closer, her hand on his chest, feeling his heart race. Who said anything about letting go? He kissed her then, deep and claiming, like he'd been holding back for weeks, and finally let himself feel everything. Lena melted into him, into the heat and certainty, into the terrifying knowledge that she was falling for a man who lived in shadows and offered no promises of light. Marco pulled back, breathing hard. Upstairs, now, before I lose what's left of my control. They barely made it to his bedroom before clothes started disappearing. Marco was reverent and demanding by turns, learning her body like it was sacred text, making her feel worshipped and possessed in equal measure. When they finally came together, Lena felt something shift fundamentally, like she'd crossed an invisible line into territory she couldn't retreat from. Afterward, Marco held her close, his fingers tracing patterns on her skin. Mine, he whispered against her hair. Say it. Lena should have resisted the possessiveness, should have maintained independence. Instead, she breathed, yours, and felt the truth of it settle into her bones. The next morning, she woke to an empty bed and voices drifting from Marco's office. She pulled on his shirt and padded quietly down the hall, not meaning to eavesdrop, but unable to help overhearing. Finished, all of them. A man's voice, unfamiliar, cold. Clean, no witnesses. Good. Marco's tone was flat, businesslike. And the message? Clear. No one threatens what's yours and lives. Lena's stomach turned. She backed away silently, returning to the bedroom with her mind racing. Marco had killed people, had them killed, because they'd threatened her, because she mattered to him enough to destroy anyone who posed a risk. She should have been horrified, should have packed and run. Instead, she felt something darker, a savage satisfaction that someone finally valued her enough to fight for her, to eliminate threats without hesitation. What did that say about her? About who she was becoming? Marco found her 20 minutes later, showered and dressed for the day, his expression carefully neutral. You heard, he said. Not a question. Yes. And? Lena met his eyes directly. How many people died because of me? Does it matter? Yes. Marco considered her for a long moment. For the leadership of the organization that threatened you, quick, clean, they didn't suffer. That's supposed to make it better? It's supposed to make you understand I don't take pleasure in violence, but I will use it to protect what matters. He moved closer. Are you leaving? The question hung between them, loaded with everything unspoken. Lena thought about the line she'd crossed, about the man she was falling for who made life and death decisions like they were business transactions, about the version of herself who felt relieved instead of repulsed. "I should," she said slowly. "I should pack my things and go back to my safe, struggling life where nobody dies because of me. But I'm not going to." Lena moved into his space, her hands on his chest. "Because you're right. They threatened me and they faced consequences. In your world, that's justice. It's the only justice that matters." Marco's arms came around her. "Does that make you complicit? Accepting this? Accepting me?" "Probably." Lena looked up at him. "Am I broken for not caring more? You're human. You're safe. That's all that matters to me." The next week passed in strange normalcy. Lena attended classes, studied in Marco's penthouse, fell asleep in his arms every night. They didn't discuss the deaths, didn't acknowledge the darkness hovering at the edges of their relationship. Instead, they existed in a bubble where Marco was just a successful businessman and Lena was just a nursing student, and nothing complicated touched them. But reality, Lena was learning, always found a way in. She was leaving campus one afternoon when a woman approached, elegant, beautiful, radiating the kind of confidence that came from wealth and power. "You must be Lena," the woman said, her smile sharp. "I'm Sophia, an old friend of Marco's." "He's never mentioned you," Lena replied carefully. "He wouldn't. Men like Marco don't discuss their pasts with their current diversions." Sophia's eyes were cold despite her smile. "Walk with me? I think we should talk." Every instinct screamed danger, but Lena found herself falling into step beside Sophia, curiosity overriding caution. "Marco has a type," Sophia said conversationally. "Beautiful women in difficult circumstances. He rescues them, transforms them, makes them dependent. Then, when the novelty fades, he moves on." "That's not what this is, isn't it? He paid your debts, set up your school, gave you a place to live. You're entirely dependent on his generosity." Sophia's voice was almost kind. "What happens when he gets bored, Lena?" "When the next struggling woman catches his eye." "He's not like that." "They all are, darling. Powerful men collect beautiful broken things. You're just the latest addition to his collection." The words wormed into Lena's brain, feeding doubts she'd been suppressing. Was she just a project to Marco, a charity case he'd gotten attached to temporarily? "I need to go," Lena said abruptly. "Think about what I said, and ask yourself, does he love you, or does he love the idea of saving you?" Sophia's smile widened. "There's a difference, you know." Lena practically ran back to Marco's building, her mind churning. Vincent met her in the lobby, his expression concerned. "Miss Moore, are you all right? Is Marco home?" "In his office, but he's in a meeting." Lena pushed past him, taking the private elevator up. She burst into Marco's penthouse and straight into his office, where he sat with two severe-looking men reviewing documents. Marco stood immediately, dismissing his associates with a gesture. "Lena? What's wrong? Who's Sophia?" His expression shuddered. "Where did you hear that name?" "She approached me, told me I'm just your latest project, that you have a pattern of rescuing broken women, then discarding them." Lena's voice shook. "Is it true?" Marco was quiet for too long. When he spoke, his voice was careful. "Sophia is my ex-wife. We divorced 4 years ago. Badly." "You are married?" Lena felt the ground shift. "You never mentioned, because it's not relevant to us." She said, "I'm just like the others, that you'll get bored and move on." "She's trying to hurt you, to drive a wedge between us." Marco moved closer. "Don't let her." "Then tell me she's wrong. Tell me there weren't others like me." The pause was damning. "There were 2, Marco admitted finally. "Women I helped, women I cared about, but it ended because they couldn't accept my world, not because I lost interest. How do I know I'm not just the same pattern repeating? Because what I feel for you is different, deeper, more real than anything I've experienced." Marco cupped her face. "I love you, Lena. Completely, irrevocably. That's not a pattern, it's a fact." The words should have fixed everything. Instead, they terrified her. Because love in Marco's world came with blood on its edges, with possessiveness that bordered on obsession, with a future she couldn't quite envision. "I need time," Lena whispered, "to think, to figure out if I can really do this." Pain flashed across Marco's face, quickly controlled. "How much time?" "I don't know. Maybe I should stay at my apartment for a few days, get some space." "Space from me? Or from what I am?" "Both, neither. I don't know, Marco. I just feel like I'm drowning and I need to remember how to breathe on my own." He released her slowly, like it physically hurt to let go. "Okay, take your space." "But Lena?" His voice dropped to something almost pleading. "Don't let Sophia poison what we have. Don't let fear destroy something real." Lena packed a bag with trembling hands while Marco watched from the doorway, silent and tense. Vincent drove her to her apartment without comment, though she saw worry in his eyes. Alone in her small space, the one Marco paid for, she remembered bitterly, Lena tried to sort through everything. She loved him. That was the terrifying truth she'd been avoiding. Loved a man who killed without hesitation, who claimed her like property, who built her entire life around his protection. Was that enough? Could love survive in darkness? Or was Sophia right? Was she just another project destined to fail when reality became too heavy? Her phone buzzed constantly. Texts from Marco. "I'm here when you're ready. I love you. Please don't disappear on me." Lena didn't respond. Couldn't find words that expressed the confusion tearing her apart. 3 days passed. 3 days of attending classes and pretending everything was normal while her heart ached. 3 days of missing Marco so intensely it felt physical. On the 4th morning, Lena woke to pounding on her door. She opened it to find a woman she'd never seen, young, terrified, covered in bruises. "Please," the woman gasped. "You're Lena, right? Marco's Lena? I need help. They're going to kill me." And just like that, Lena's attempt at space shattered completely. Because Marco's world wasn't something she could step away from. Not anymore. Not when it was already wrapped around her life, demanding choices she wasn't ready to make. Lena pulled the terrified woman inside and locked the door, her nursing training kicking in automatically as she assessed the injuries. Fresh bruises mottled the woman's arms and face, and she favored her left side like ribs might be cracked. "Sit down," Lena said firmly, guiding her to the couch. "What's your name?" "Riley." The woman's voice shook. "Riley Chen. I worked for the Castellano family, but I saw something I shouldn't have, and now they want me dead." "The Castellano family?" Lena grabbed ice from the freezer, wrapping it in a towel. "I don't know who that is." "They're rivals of Marco's. When his men took out their leadership, everything went chaotic. People are scrambling for power, making moves, eliminating loose ends." Riley pressed the ice to her swollen cheek. "I'm a loose end, but I heard Marco protects people, that if you're under his care, you're untouchable. Please, you have to help me." Lena's mind raced. 3 days. She'd had 3 days of space, 3 days of pretending she could step away from Marco's world, and now it was literally on her doorstep demanding she choose. "How did you find me?" "Everyone knows about you. Marco DeLuca's woman, the one he went to war for." Riley's eyes were desperate. "If you call him, if you ask him to help me, he will. Please. They'll kill me before morning." Lena looked at this broken, terrified woman and saw herself 6 weeks ago, desperate, alone, with nowhere to turn. The difference was Marco had chosen to help her without being asked. Could she do less for someone literally begging for safety? She picked up her phone, her hand steady despite her racing heart. Marco answered before the first ring finished. "Lena." His voice was rough, like he hadn't slept. "Are you? I need your help. There's a woman here, Riley Chen. She says people are trying to kill her. She says you can protect her." Silence. Then Marco's tone shifted to pure business. "Don't open the door for anyone. I'm sending Vincent and a security team. 5 minutes." "Marco, wait. Is this real? Is she really in danger?" "If she's connected to the Castellanos, yes. They're cleaning house after we removed their structure." A pause. "You did the right thing calling me." "I didn't know what else to do." "You trusted me. That's enough." His voice softened slightly. "Are you okay?" "I don't know. Can we talk about that later?" "Later. After you're safe. I'm coming personally." The line went dead. Lena looked at Riley, who was crying silently now, her whole body shaking. "He's coming," Lena said quietly. "You're going to be okay." "Thank you. God, thank you." Riley grabbed Lena's hand. "I know what people say about Marco DeLuca, that he's dangerous, that he's ruthless. But he's also the only person in this city who keeps his word. If he says he'll protect you, you're protected. How do you know so much about him?" "Everyone in our world knows about Marco. He's legend. The man who built an empire from nothing and holds it through sheer force of will." Riley's grip tightened. "The man who destroyed an entire organization because they threatened his woman. That's you. You're why 4 people died and a power structure collapsed." The words hit Lena like a physical blow. She'd known abstractly that Marco had killed to protect her, but hearing it stated so plainly made it real in a way she'd been avoiding. "I didn't ask for that," she whispered. "No one asks for Marco DeLuca to care about them. It just happens, and when it does, everything changes." Riley's expression was almost pitying. "You can't go back to normal now. You know that, right? Once you're his, you're marked, protected but marked." Before Lena could respond, her door burst open. She hadn't heard any knock, any warning. Vincent entered first, followed by 2 large men in dark suits, their eyes scanning the apartment with professional efficiency. Then Marco appeared, and the small space seemed to shrink around his presence. He looked terrible, exhausted, tense, like he'd spent the last 3 days in hell. His eyes found Lena immediately, and she saw relief so profound it made her chest ache. "You're safe," he said, moving to her in 3 long strides. His hands framed her face, his forehead pressing against hers. "You're safe." "I'm fine, but Riley, my men will handle it." Marco didn't look away from Lena. "You're coming with me, now." "I can't just—" "Yes, you can." His voice was absolute. "You called me for help, which means you're involved, which means you're not safe here anymore. So you're coming to my penthouse where I can protect you properly." "Marco, I needed space." "And you got 3 days. Then my world landed on your doorstep, exactly like I warned you it would." His thumb traced her cheekbone. "You don't get to pretend you're separate from this anymore, Lena. You made your choice the moment you called me." He was right, and they both knew it. Lena looked past him to where his men were helping Riley stand, their movements gentle despite their intimidating appearance. "What will happen to her?" "Safe house, medical attention, new identity if necessary." Marco finally looked at Riley, his expression cold and assessing. "And a very thorough conversation about exactly what she knows. She's scared. Don't hurt her. I don't hurt people asking for help, but I do verify stories before extending protection." He turned back to Lena. "Pack a bag. You're not coming back here." "You can't just order me around. Watch me." Marco's voice was calm but unyielding. "You're in danger as long as the Castellano situation is unstable. So you're staying where I can see you until it's resolved. Argue if you want, but you're still coming with me." The arrogance should have made her furious. Instead, Lena felt something loosen in her chest, relief at surrendering the decision, at letting someone else carry the weight for a while. "Fine," she said quietly, "but we need to talk, really talk, about everything. After you're safe, after Riley's situation is handled, after I know every potential threat is eliminated." Marco's jaw was tight. "Then we'll talk about whatever you need." Lena packed quickly while Marco watched from the doorway, his presence both comforting and overwhelming. When she finished, he took her bag and guided her toward the door with a hand at her lower back. "Vincent, take Riley to the safe house on 5th. Full security detail. No one in or out without my authorization." Marco's voice carried absolute authority. "And find out everything she knows about Castellano operations. I want names, locations, every detail." "Yes, sir." Vincent moved efficiently, and Riley threw Lena a grateful look as she was escorted out. The drive to Marco's penthouse was silent, tension thick between them. Lena stared out the window, processing everything that had happened in the last hour. She'd tried to step away, tried to find space and clarity, and instead got pulled deeper into Marco's world. In the elevator up to his penthouse, Marco finally spoke. "You scared me. I called you as soon as, not tonight." 3 days of silence, Lena. 3 days of not knowing if you were done with me. His voice was raw. Do you have any idea what that did to me? I needed to think. And what did you decide? Marco's eyes were intense, almost desperate. Before Riley showed up and forced your hand, what conclusion did you reach? Lena met his gaze directly. That I'm in love with you. That it terrifies me. That I don't know how to reconcile who you are with what I believe about right and wrong. But you called me anyway. When you needed help, I was the one you trusted. You were the only one who could help. No. Marco moved closer, crowding her in the small elevator. You could have called the police, could have turned Riley away, could have handled it a dozen different ways that didn't involve me. But you called me because some part of you knows where you belong. The elevator doors opened before Lena could respond. Marco's penthouse was exactly as she remembered, luxurious, expensive, beautiful. But now it felt different, less like a fantasy and more like a cage she was choosing to enter. Marco set down her bag and poured them both whiskey without asking. He handed her a glass, his movements controlled despite the tension radiating from him. You wanted to talk, he said. So talk. Ask me anything. Lena took a long drink, letting the burn steady her. Sophia said, I'm just a pattern. That you rescue broken women and discard them when the novelty fades. Tell me she's wrong. She's wrong about her conclusion, even if the facts are accurate. Marco sat across from her, his expression open in a way she'd rarely seen. I did help 2 women before you, women in bad situations who needed resources and protection. I cared about them, maybe even loved them in my way, but they couldn't accept what I am. When they learned the truth about my business, they left. I didn't discard them. They chose to go. And you just let them? I don't keep people who don't want to be kept. His eyes held hers. But you're different, Lena. What I feel for you isn't rescue instinct or savior complex. It's deeper, more consuming. You challenge me. You see my darkness and don't immediately run. You called me when you needed help instead of trying to handle everything alone. That doesn't make me different. That makes me practical. It makes you trust me despite your fear. That's everything. Marco leaned forward. I love you. Not the idea of saving you, not the project of transforming you. You. The woman who works herself to exhaustion, who dreams of healing people, who looks at me like I'm both dangerous and necessary. I love all of it. Lena felt tears burn her eyes. Your love comes with blood on it, Marco. People die because of me, because you care about me. People die because they make choices that threaten what's mine. That's on them, not you. How can you be so casual about it? Because in my world, there are only 2 types of people. Those under my protection and those who aren't. The ones I protect, I keep safe at any cost. Everyone else is subject to the same rules they've chosen to live by. Marco's voice was steady, certain. You're under my protection, Lena. That means anyone who threatens you faces consequences. I won't apologize for that. You're asking me to accept that loving you means accepting violence. I'm asking you to accept that I will always protect you, even when the methods are ugly. Can you live with that? Lena stared into her whiskey, watching the amber liquid catch the light. Could she? Could she build a life with a man who solved problems with force, who operated outside the law, who saw killing as a reasonable business decision? I don't know, she admitted, but I know I can't walk away. I tried, Marco. I spent 3 days trying to convince myself I could go back to my safe, struggling life. And I couldn't, because that life doesn't exist anymore. You've changed everything. Is that a bad thing? It's terrifying. You've given me everything I needed, school, security, purpose, but you've also made me dependent. What happens if this ends? If you decide I'm not worth the complication? Marco stood abruptly, his control visibly fraying. You think I'd invest this much, emotionally, financially, and every way that matters, just to walk away? You think protecting you from threats, killing for you, reorganizing my life around you is something I do casually? I think powerful men get bored. I'm not bored. I'm obsessed. He pulled her to her feet, his hands gripping her arms. I think about you constantly. Wonder what you're doing, if you're happy, if you need anything. I've restructured business meetings so I can have dinner with you. I've turned down opportunities because they take me away from the city where you are. This isn't a phase, Lena. This is my life now. You're my life now. The intensity in his voice, in his eyes, should have scared her. Instead, Lena felt something settle into place, a certainty she'd been fighting. I love you, she whispered. Even though it's insane, even though you're dangerous and possessive and you solve problems by eliminating people. I love you. Marco's kiss was desperate, claiming, like he'd been holding back for days and finally let himself feel everything. Lena kissed him back with equal intensity, pouring 3 days of confusion and fear and longing into the connection. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Marco rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he said quietly. Not because you're in danger or because you need protection. Stay because you want this. Want me. Want us. I do want this. But Marco, I need honesty, complete honesty. No more secrets about your business or your past or the things you do. Some things are better left unknown, for your safety and your peace of mind. No. Lena pulled back enough to meet his eyes. If I'm going to be part of your life, really part of it, I need to know what that means. All of it. Marco searched her face for a long moment before nodding slowly. Okay. But once you know, you can't unknow it. Once you're fully in my world, there's no pretending innocence. I stopped being innocent the moment I accepted your help. Lena took his hand. Tell me everything. So he did. Over the next hours, as night deepened outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, Marco laid out his empire in stark detail. The legitimate businesses that provided cover and income. The illegal operations, gambling, protection services, smuggling high-end goods through customs. The network of people who owed him favors, feared him, or both. The violence he used judiciously but without hesitation when someone crossed lines. I don't deal drugs, he said at one point. Don't traffic people. Those are lines I won't cross. But everything else in the gray area? Fair game. How many people have you killed? Lena asked, her voice steady despite the horror of the question. Personally, 7. 3 in self-defense when I was younger and building my reputation. 4 executions of people who betrayed me or posed existential threats. Marco's expression didn't change. People I've ordered killed? More. I don't keep exact count because the number doesn't matter. Each death served a purpose. And the 4 who died because of me? Necessary. They knew threatening you was crossing a line, and they did it anyway. I made an example so no one else would be stupid enough to try. Lena absorbed this, trying to reconcile the man who spoke so casually about killing with the man who held her gently, who listened when she talked about her dreams, who made her feel cherished. What about Riley? She asked. What will happen to her? Depends on what she knows and whether her story checks out. If she's genuinely in danger and her information is valuable, I'll protect her. New identity, relocation, a clean start. Marco's tone was businesslike. If she's lying or trying to infiltrate my organization, she'll disappear quietly. You'd kill her? I'd eliminate a threat. There's a difference. Not really. Yes, really. Marco's voice was firm. Threats to my organization threaten everyone under my protection, including you. I won't risk your safety for misplaced mercy. The conversation should have sent Lena running, should have confirmed every fear about who Marco was and what loving him meant. Instead, she felt strangely calm. This was reality. This was the man she'd chosen, and knowing the full truth somehow made it easier to accept. I have conditions, she said finally. Name them. You don't lie to me, ever. I'd rather know ugly truth than live with comfortable lies. Agreed. You don't involve me directly in your business. I don't want to know operational details or meet your associates or participate in decisions. I can do that, but you'll still be protected, which means security details and restrictions on your movements during dangerous periods. I can live with that. Lena took a breath. And you let me keep something separate. My nursing career, when I have it, stays clean. You don't use your influence to get me jobs or manipulate my success. Marco hesitated. I can't promise not to smooth obstacles. If someone threatens your career, I'll handle it. Handling obstacles isn't the same as building my career for me. Fair. He nodded. Anything else? Yeah. You have to actually marry me if this is real. I'm not spending my life as someone's girlfriend or mistress or whatever term people use. If I'm doing this, if I'm accepting all of it, you commit fully. Marco's smile was slow and devastating. Is that a proposal, Lena Moore? It's a condition. Then yes. Absolutely yes. Tomorrow, next month, next year, whenever you're ready, I'll marry you. His voice dropped. I'll give you everything, Lena. My name, my protection, my entire world. Just stay. I'm staying. Lena moved into his arms, letting herself be held. I'm terrified and probably making a huge mistake. But I'm staying. Not a mistake. Marco's arms tightened around her. The best decision either of us ever made. They stood like that for a long time, the city lights glittering below, the weight of their choices settling around them. Lena had crossed a line tonight, had chosen darkness willingly, with open eyes. There was no going back now. The next morning, Lena woke to Marco already dressed and on the phone, his voice low and intense. She watched him pace, noting the tension in his shoulders, and knew instinctively that something had changed. When he ended the call, his expression was grim. Riley's story checks out. She witnessed a murder, internal Castellano business, and they're hunting her aggressively. So you'll protect her? I am protecting her, but there's a complication. Marco sat on the edge of the bed. The information she has could destabilize what's left of Castellano operations completely. If I use it, I could absorb their territory and eliminate a rival permanently. But it would also put a target on her back for life. What does Riley want? She wants to disappear. New identity, new city, money to start over, in exchange for everything she knows. That seems fair. It is. But it also means acting on her information, which means more violence, more deaths, a full territorial war. Lena processed this carefully. Is that something you want? More territory? Want? No. War is expensive and unpredictable, but strategically, eliminating the Castellanos permanently would secure my position for years, consolidate power, remove threats. Marco's eyes met hers. It would also make you safer in the long run. No rival organization means no one with resources to come after you. You're asking my opinion on whether to start a war. I'm telling you the factors I'm considering. The decision is mine, but the consequences affect you. You deserve to know what's coming. Lena thought about Riley, about all the other people caught in the crossfire of powerful men making strategic decisions. Thought about the version of herself from 2 months ago who would have been horrified by this conversation. If you're going to do it anyway, do it fast, she said quietly. End it quickly so fewer people get hurt in the crossfire. Marco's expression was unreadable. That's your advice? End it quickly? You're going to protect Riley regardless. You're going to use her information because not using it would be stupid strategically. And you're going to make me safer however you can because that's who you are. Lena held his gaze. So yes, if war is coming, make it swift. Minimize the damage. Win decisively. He kissed her then, hard and deep, like her acceptance meant everything. You understand me, he said against her lips. You actually understand how I think. I'm learning. Doesn't mean I like it. You don't have to like it. Just accept it. Marco stood, pulling her up with him. Get dressed. I want you somewhere secure while I handle this. Vincent will take you to a private location outside the city. I have classes. That can wait. Your safety can't. Lena wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her normal life, but she'd promised to accept his protection, and that meant trusting his judgment about danger. How long? A week. Maybe less if things go smoothly. Marco cupped her face. I need to know you're safe so I can focus completely on ending this. So Lena let herself be taken to a house in the mountains. Beautiful, isolated, heavily guarded. She spent 5 days studying nursing materials, taking long walks under watchful eyes, and trying not to think about what Marco was doing back in the city. He called every night, his voice tired but controlled, never discussing specifics but always asking about her day, her studies, her well-being. The conversations felt normal, domestic, like they were any couple separated by business travel rather than a territorial war. On the sixth day, Vincent appeared with a new phone. "Mr. DeLuca asked me to give you this. He said to check the news." Lena opened the news app with trembling hands. The headline made her breath catch. "Major gang bust results in arrests, deaths in citywide operation." She read the article with growing understanding. The Castellano family's remaining leadership arrested or killed in coordinated raids. Their operations dismantled, their territory absorbed by unnamed business interests. No mention of Marco, no indication of his involvement, but Lena knew. She knew this was his work, executed with precision that left no evidence. Her phone rang immediately, Marco's new number. "It's done," he said without preamble. "Clean, complete. You can come home." "Home," Lena tested the word. "Your penthouse is home now?" "Our penthouse. I had your things moved while you were gone. Your own study for when you need space, your own bathroom if you want privacy." A pause. "But our bedroom, our bed, our life together." "You're very presumptuous." "I'm very certain." Marco's voice softened. "Come home, Lena. I need to see you." Vincent drove her back to the city as evening fell, the lights beginning to glow against the darkening sky. Lena watched familiar streets pass and thought about how much had changed in 6 weeks. She'd gone from invisible waitress to the woman a dangerous man waged war to protect, from struggling alone to being part of something bigger and darker than she'd ever imagined. Marco met her at the penthouse entrance, pulling her into his arms before she'd fully exited the elevator. "You're safe," he breathed against her hair. "It's over. You're safe." "Were you worried?" "Terrified. Until the last arrest was made, until every threat was neutralized, I couldn't breathe properly." He pulled back to look at her. "But it's done now. The Castellanos are finished. No one else is stupid enough to challenge me after seeing what happens. You're protected, Lena, completely." She should have felt relief. Instead, Lena felt the weight of what that protection cost. Lives ended, families destroyed, power consolidated through violence. But she also felt the savage satisfaction of being valued enough that Marco would reshape the criminal landscape to keep her safe. "Show me the study," she said, instead of dwelling on darkness. "Show me what you did to our home." Marco's smile was brilliant as he led her through the penthouse. He'd created a beautiful space for her, large desk, medical texts already shelved, comfortable chairs for reading, a space that was hers while existing in his world. "It's perfect," Lena admitted, running her hand along the desk. "Thank you. Anything you need, everything you want. Just ask." She turned to face him, this man who'd destroyed an organization to protect her, who killed without hesitation but held her with devastating gentleness. "I need you to ask me properly." "Ask you what?" "You said you'd marry me, that it was the best decision either of us ever made." Lena moved closer. "So ask me. Really ask me." Understanding dawned in Marco's eyes. He reached into his pocket and produced a small box, like he'd been carrying it, waiting for the right moment. "I bought this the day after you called me about Riley," he said quietly. "The day I knew you'd chosen me despite everything, despite the danger, despite your fear, despite having every reason to run." He opened the box to reveal a ring, elegant, understated, a single diamond that caught the light and held it. Nothing ostentatious, nothing that screamed wealth, just beautiful. Marco dropped to one knee, his dark eyes locked on hers. "Lena Moore, you walked into my life by accident and changed everything. You see me, really see me, and chose to stay anyway. You accept my darkness and challenge me to be better. You're brilliant and brave and stubborn, and you make me want to build a future instead of just surviving the present." His voice was steady, certain. "Marry me. Be my wife. Let me spend the rest of my life protecting you and loving you and giving you everything you deserve. Let me be yours completely." Lena felt tears spill over, felt her heart crack open with the weight of the moment. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you. Marco slid the ring onto her finger, then stood and kissed her with a reverence that made her chest ache. When they broke apart, both were crying. Lena openly, Marco with silent tears tracking down his face. I love you, he said fiercely. I'll love you until my last breath. I'll protect you with everything I have. I'll build you a life worth living. I love you too. Lena touched his face gently. Even though you're dangerous and possessive and you solve problems by eliminating people, I love all of you. Even the darkness? Especially the darkness, because it's part of who you are, and I choose all of you. They stood like that as night claimed the city, two people bound by love and violence and choices that couldn't be undone. Lena had crossed every line she'd sworn she wouldn't, had accepted a life built on foundations most people would condemn, had chosen a man who would burn the world to keep her safe, and she didn't regret any of it. The investigation started 3 weeks after Marco's proposal, just when Lena had begun to believe they might actually have peace. She was leaving her anatomy lecture when 2 men in suits approached, their badges glinting in the afternoon sun. Federal agents. Lena's stomach dropped even before they spoke. Miss Moore, we'd like to ask you a few questions about Marco DeLuca. Every instinct screamed to refuse, to call Marco immediately, to protect him the way he'd protected her. But Lena forced herself to stay calm, to channel the composure she'd been learning in his world. I don't answer questions without my lawyer present, she said evenly. The older agent, gray hair, tired eyes, smiled slightly. Smart. DeLuca teach you that? Common sense taught me that. Am I being detained? Not yet. But we will be speaking with you, Miss Moore. Soon. We're building a case against your fiancé, and you're going to be part of it whether you cooperate or not. They walked away before Lena could respond, leaving her shaking on the campus steps. She called Marco immediately. Federal agents just approached me, asking questions about you. Marco's silence was more terrifying than any response would have been. When he finally spoke, his voice was ice cold. What did you tell them? Nothing. I asked for a lawyer. Good girl. Vincent is picking you up now. Don't go anywhere alone until I assess the situation. A pause, then softer. Are you okay? Scared. What does this mean? It means someone talked. Someone with enough information to make the feds interested. Marco's voice hardened again. I'll handle it. Just come home. Home. The words still felt strange and right simultaneously. Lena gathered her books and waited for Vincent, her mind racing through possibilities. Who would talk? What did they know? How much danger was Marco actually in? At the penthouse, she found Marco in his office surrounded by papers, his phone pressed to his ear, his expression darker than she'd ever seen. He gestured for her to wait, finishing his conversation in clipped Italian before hanging up. Tell me everything they said. Exact words. Lena recounted the brief encounter, watching Marco's face for reactions. He listened without interrupting, his mind clearly processing, calculating. They said they're building a case, she finished, that I'd be part of it whether I cooperate or not. What does that mean? It means they'll subpoena you, force you to testify about our relationship, our finances, anything you might have seen or heard. Marco's jaw tightened. It means they're trying to use you against me. I won't testify against you. You might not have a choice. Spousal privilege only applies after we're married. His eyes met hers, intense and calculating. We need to move up the wedding. Lena's breath caught. What? If we're married, you can't be compelled to testify against me. It's the only way to protect you from being used as a weapon in their investigation. Marco moved to her, his hands framing her face. I know this isn't romantic. I know it's not how you imagined this happening, but I need you protected legally as well as physically. You want to get married now because of an investigation? I want to marry you because I love you. The investigation just makes the timing urgent. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Say yes, Lena. Let me protect you completely. She should have been insulted that their wedding was being rushed for legal strategy, should have demanded romance and proper planning. Instead, Lena thought about federal agents trying to force her to destroy the man she loved and felt her resolve harden. Okay. When? This week. I have a judge who owes me a favor. Small ceremony, just us and witnesses we trust. Marco's expression softened slightly. After this is over, after the investigation resolves, we'll do it again. Properly. Big wedding, all your friends, everything you want. But for now, I need you legally protected. What about my friends from school? My life outside of you? They'll understand eventually, or they won't. But your safety matters more than their opinions. Lena thought about the few friendships she'd been building at nursing school, the normal life she'd been trying to maintain alongside Marco's world. All of it would have to wait now. All of it became secondary to survival. 3 days, Marco said, his voice firm. 3 days, and you're my wife, legally untouchable. Then we figure out who talked and how to handle the investigation. The wedding happened in Marco's penthouse at sunset, witnessed by Vincent and Marco's lawyer, a sharp-eyed woman named Catherine, who'd handled the paperwork with ruthless efficiency. The judge was older, clearly uncomfortable, but too indebted to refuse, and he rushed through the ceremony with minimal pleasantries. Lena wore a simple dress, cream-colored, elegant without being ostentatious, that Marco had somehow procured in 24 hours. He wore a dark suit that made him look both dangerous and devastatingly handsome. When the judge pronounced them married and Marco kissed her, Lena felt the moment's weight settle around her like armor. She was Mrs. DeLuca now, protected, claimed, bound to a man whose world was currently crashing down around them. I promise you a better wedding, Marco whispered against her lips. When this is over, everything you deserve. I have what I need, Lena replied, and meant it. The celebration was brief. Champagne, a dinner prepared by Marco's private chef, then just the two of them alone in the penthouse while the city glittered below. Marco made love to her with an intensity that bordered on desperation, like he was trying to brand himself into her skin to make permanent what legal documents had formalized. Afterward, lying tangled together, Lena traced the scars on his chest, reminders of a violent life she'd chosen to accept. Tell me the truth, she said quietly. How bad is this investigation? Marco was silent for a long moment. Bad. They have financial records, testimony from someone inside my organization, enough to bring charges if they push hard enough. Will you go to prison? Not if I can help it, but the next few months will be difficult, dangerous. His arm tightened around her. I need you to be smart, Lena. Don't talk to anyone about my business. Don't acknowledge anything you might have overheard. If they pressure you, defer to Catherine. She'll handle everything. I won't let them use me against you. They'll try. They'll threaten you, offer you deals, paint me as a monster you need to escape from. Marco's voice was grim. You have to be strong. Remember why you chose this. Remember what we are together. I'm not weak, Marco. I won't break. I know. But investigations like this, they grind people down. They make you doubt everything, question everyone. He pulled her closer. Just promise me you won't let them poison what we have. Lena promised, having no idea how hard keeping that promise would become. The pressure started subtly. Federal agents appearing at her school, asking classmates about her relationship with Marco. Whispers following her through hallways. Professors looking at her differently, like being engaged, now married, to Marco DeLuca, made her suspect by association. Then the media picked up the story. Photos of Lena leaving campus, headlines speculating about the mysterious woman who'd married one of the city's most powerful and dangerous men. Her phone buzzed constantly with calls from reporters, from old acquaintances suddenly interested in her life, from people she'd never met wanting information. Marco hired additional security, insisted she travel only with Vincent or his team, tried to shield her from the worst of it. But Lena felt her carefully rebuilt normal life crumbling. I can't do this, she told Marco one evening, her voice breaking. I can't go to class with everyone staring, can't study knowing my classmates are being questioned about me, can't pretend everything's normal when it's not. Then don't pretend. Marco pulled her into his arms. Take a semester off. Focus on getting through this. You can return to school when things settle. That's exactly what they want. To isolate me. To make me completely dependent on you. You're already dependent on me. Might as well accept it and make things easier on yourself. His voice was pragmatic, not cruel. This is temporary, Lena. Once the investigation resolves, life gets easier. Or you go to prison, and I'm left alone with everyone knowing who I married. I'm not going to prison. Marco's certainty was absolute. I've been doing this too long, been too careful. They don't have enough to convict, just enough to make noise and hope I make a mistake. What if you do? Make a mistake? I won't, because I have you to protect now. I have a future I'm not willing to lose. He kissed her forehead gently. Trust me, Lena. I've survived worse than federal investigations. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that his confidence was justified and not arrogance. But lying awake at night while Marco slept beside her, Lena felt fear crawl up her spine. Fear of losing him. Fear of being left alone in a world that now saw her as either victim or accomplice. Fear of the choice she'd made leading to destruction. The breakthrough, or breakdown, depending on perspective, came 6 weeks into the investigation. Catherine called an emergency meeting, her expression grimmer than Lena had ever seen. They have your financial records, she told Marco bluntly. Everything, accounts, transfers, purchases. They're building a money laundering case. How? Marco's voice was deadly calm. Those accounts were secured. Someone with access gave them up, someone who knew your systems intimately. Catherine slid a folder across the table. I have a short list of suspects, all people you trusted. Marco opened the folder, his face going cold and blank as he read. When he looked up, Lena saw something in his eyes that terrified her, pure, calculating rage. It's Michael, he said flatly. My second in command for 8 years. The one person I gave full financial access. Why would he turn on you? Lena asked. Money, immunity, fear. Marco's jaw tightened. Or maybe ambition. Maybe he thought he could take over if I went to prison. What are you going to do? The question hung heavy in the air. Catherine glanced at Lena, then back to Marco, clearly uncomfortable with her presence. Whatever's necessary, Marco said quietly. Catherine, I need locations on Michael, all of them, and I need to know what else he might have given the feds. Marco, Lena's voice was sharp. You can't kill him, not now, not with the investigation active. I'm not going to kill him. Marco's smile was cold. I'm going to talk to him, convince him to recant his testimony, make him understand the mistake he's made. That's not talking, that's business, Lena. This is how my world works. Someone betrays me, there are consequences. You knew that when you married me. Lena felt something crack inside her chest. If you hurt him, if you do anything that gives them more ammunition, you'll destroy everything. Don't you see that? They're watching you, waiting for you to react exactly like this. So I should do nothing? Let my own man destroy me? You should be smart. Use the legal system. Let Catherine handle it. Lena moved closer, her hands on his chest. Don't give them what they want, Marco. Don't prove their narrative that you're a violent criminal who solves problems through force. Marco stared at her for a long moment, conflict clear in his expression. Finally, he looked at Catherine. What are the legal options? We discredit him. Show he had motive to lie, gambling debts, affairs, reasons to need immunity, paint him as unreliable. Catherine's voice was clinical. It's slower than your usual methods, but it won't land you in prison for witness tampering or worse. Fine, do it. Marco's voice was tight. But if legal methods don't work, we handle it my way. Over the next weeks, Lena watched Catherine systematically destroy Michael's credibility. Evidence of his gambling addiction surfaced, affairs with multiple women, financial irregularities in his personal account suggesting he'd been skimming from Marco's operations. By the time Catherine finished, Michael looked less like a credible witness and more like a desperate man trying to save himself by any means necessary. But the victory felt hollow because Lena knew the truth. Michael had been guilty of betrayal, and in Marco's world that normally meant death. She'd convinced Marco to show restraint, to trust legal processes over violence, but she'd also seen the cost. The way Marco's tension grew daily, the way he struggled against instincts honed over decades. I did what you asked, he said one night, his voice rough. I let Catherine handle it. I played by their rules. But it goes against everything I am, Lena. Everything that's kept me alive and successful. I know, and I'm grateful. Are you? Or are you just relieved I didn't become the monster you're afraid I am? The question stung because it held truth. Lena was relieved. Every day Marco chose legal methods over violence, she felt a little less afraid of who he might become. Both, she admitted. I'm grateful you're trying, and yes, I'm relieved you're not proving everyone right about you. Everyone is right about me. Marco's voice was flat. I am exactly who they think I am. I just love you enough to pretend otherwise. That's not fair. It's honest. You asked for honesty, remember? So here it is. Showing restraint with Michael is killing me. Every instinct says eliminate the threat permanently. But I'm swallowing that instinct because you asked me to, because I love you more than I love being right. Lena felt tears burn her eyes. I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm asking you to choose a future over the past, to build something that lasts instead of burning everything down. And if the legal way doesn't work, if Michael's testimony stands and I go to prison anyway, then we deal with it, together. But at least you'll know you tried everything before resorting to violence. Marco pulled her close, his face buried in her hair. I hope you're right, because if I go to prison, if I lose you because I chose restraint over instinct, I'll never forgive myself. The case against Marco gradually fell apart over the following months. Catherine's demolition of Michael's credibility made prosecutors nervous about relying on his testimony. Financial experts picked apart the money laundering claims, showing legitimate business purposes for transactions the feds had flagged as suspicious. And without Michael's insider information, the investigation lacked the foundation to move forward. 6 months after the federal agents first approached Lena, Catherine called with news. They're dropping it. Insufficient evidence to prosecute. It's over. Lena watched Marco receive the information with barely a reaction, his expression carefully controlled. But when Catherine left and they were alone, he finally let himself feel it. Relief, vindication. And underneath it all, simmering rage at Michael for the betrayal that had nearly cost him everything. Don't, Lena said before Marco could speak. Don't even think about it. He tried to destroy me. Destroy us. You think there shouldn't be consequences? I think consequences already happened. His reputation is ruined. No one in your world will ever trust him again. He's lost everything that mattered. Respect, credibility, the protection of working for you. Lena held Marco's gaze. Isn't that enough? No. Marco's voice was hard. In my world, betrayal means death. Always has. Making an exception sets a precedent I can't afford. Then make the exception anyway. For me. Because I'm asking you to show mercy. Mercy is weakness. Mercy is strength. It's showing you're secure enough to let someone live despite their betrayal, that you're building something bigger than revenge. Lena moved closer, her hands on his face. Please, Marco. For me. Let him live. She saw the war in his eyes. Instinct versus love, reputation versus the woman asking him to change. Finally, Marco closed his eyes and exhaled slowly. He gets exile, out of the city, away from anything I control. If he ever comes back, if he ever speaks about my business again, the deal is void. His eyes opened, meeting hers with intensity that stole her breath. But this is the only time, Lena. Don't ask me to show mercy again. I can't keep choosing your morality over my survival. I won't, I promise. Lena kissed him softly. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just remember what it cost. Michael disappeared quietly, relocated to some distant city with enough money to start over and a clear understanding that returning meant death. Marco's organization absorbed the message. Betrayal wasn't always fatal, but it meant permanent exile and loss of everything that mattered. And Lena learned a harder truth. She could influence Marco, could pull him toward light occasionally, but she couldn't change his fundamental nature, could only love him despite it, and hope that love was enough to keep darkness from consuming them both. The investigation's end should have brought peace. Instead, it brought a different kind of tension. Marco had shown restraint because Lena asked, but the cost was visible in the way he held himself, the edge in his voice when dealing with business, the nightmares that woke him gasping in the dark. Talk to me, Lena said one night after Marco jerked awake, his body tense with adrenaline. Nothing to talk about. Just dreams. Dreams about what? Michael. The investigation. All the ways it could have gone wrong. Marco's voice was rough. All the reasons my instincts were right, and your mercy was dangerous. But it worked out. The case fell apart. We're safe. This time. But what about next time? What happens when showing mercy gets someone I love killed? He turned to her in the darkness. I bent my entire worldview for you, Lena. Chose legal methods over violence, restraint over instinct. And it worked because we got lucky. But luck runs out. It wasn't luck. It was intelligence, strategy, being smarter than your enemies. It was you convincing me not to be who I am. Marco's hand found hers under the covers. I love you. But I need you to understand, I can't keep fighting my nature. Eventually something will happen that requires the man I actually am, not the man you want me to be. Lena felt fear curl in her stomach because she knew he was right. She'd asked Marco to change, to show mercy, to choose her morality. But fundamental nature didn't change just because someone fell in love. Eventually, circumstances would demand the ruthless man who'd built an empire through violence and intimidation. When that happens, she said quietly, when you need to be who you really are, just don't lie to me about it. Don't pretend you're something you're not. I can do that, but can you accept it? Can you love me when I'm not trying to be better? I already do. I married you knowing exactly who you are, Marco. The investigation didn't change that. Your restraint didn't change that. Lena squeezed his hand. I love all of you, even the parts that scare me. Marco pulled her close, his arms tight around her. I hope you mean that, because the man I am, the real me, is going to emerge eventually, and I need to know you'll still be here when he does. I'll be here. I promised for better or worse, remember? This is the worse, and I'm not going anywhere. They fell asleep tangled together, both knowing a reckoning was coming, both hoping their love was strong enough to survive when Marco's carefully maintained restraint finally broke. That breaking point came sooner than either expected. 2 weeks after the investigation officially closed, Lena was leaving class when she noticed a car following her again. Different from before. This wasn't federal agents or reporters. This was something else. Something that made her skin crawl with instinctive fear. She called Marco immediately. Someone's following me. Black SUV, tinted windows, not feds. Where are you? Marco's voice went cold and sharp. Lena gave her location, her heart racing. Marco, get to the coffee shop on the corner, public space. Stay there until Vincent arrives. A pause, then quieter. And Lena, if anything happens, if anyone approaches you, run. Don't be brave, just run. The coffee shop felt too exposed despite being crowded. Lena sat with her back to the wall, watching the door, her phone clutched tight. 10 minutes passed. 15. Then a man entered, older, well-dressed, with cold eyes that found her immediately. He approached her table without invitation, sitting down like he had every right. Mrs. DeLuca, we should talk. I don't know you. No, but I knew your husband before he became the man who thinks he runs this city. The man's smile was predatory. I'm Anthony Moretti, and I'm here to deliver a message. Lena's blood ran cold. She'd heard that name in Marco's sleep-confused mumblings, in careful conversations he'd had with associates. Anthony Moretti had been Marco's mentor once, before some falling out neither discussed. Now he was something else, something dangerous. I'm not interested in messages, Lena said, standing. I'm leaving. Sit down. Moretti's voice didn't rise, but something in his tone made Lena freeze. I'm not here to hurt you, just to make sure Marco understands the situation. What situation? The one where he thinks destroying the Castellanos made him untouchable, where he believes he can operate without consequence. Moretti leaned back, completely relaxed. Tell your husband that protection only lasts as long as I allow it, that empires built on violence fall the same way, and that his greatest weakness is sitting across from me right now. Lena felt rage override fear. Don't threaten me. I'm not threatening, I'm educating. Marco loves you. That love makes him vulnerable, makes him predictable. Moretti stood, straightening his jacket. Tell him Anthony says hello, and that I'm coming for what's mine. He walked out before Lena could respond, leaving her shaking with anger and fear. Vincent arrived moments later, his expression grim when she explained what happened. Mr. DeLuca needs to know immediately. At the penthouse, Marco listened to Lena's account with a stillness that was more terrifying than any rage. When she finished, he made a single phone call in Italian, his voice deadly calm. Then he turned to her. Pack a bag. You're leaving the city tonight. I'm not running. You're not running. You're being protected while I handle this. Marco's expression was carved from stone. Anthony Moretti is a dead man. He just doesn't know it yet. Marco, think about this. I've thought about it for years, ever since he betrayed me and tried to take my business. I showed him mercy once, let him fade into retirement instead of killing him. Marco's voice was ice. But he just threatened you, in person. Made sure you knew he sees you as my weakness. That's a line no one crosses. Lena saw it then. The man Marco really was. Not the version who'd shown restraint during the investigation. Not the man who'd chosen mercy for Michael because she asked. This was the ruthless criminal who'd built an empire through violence and intimidation, and nothing she said would change his course. Don't ask me to spare him, Marco said quietly, reading her expression. Don't ask me to show mercy when someone threatens your life. That's the one thing I can't do, Lena, not even for you. She knew he was right. Knew this was the moment she'd been dreading, when Marco's nature and her morality collided completely. When loving him meant accepting he would kill to protect her, and nothing she said would matter. I won't ask, Lena said finally, but I need you to come back to me. Whatever you do, however you handle this, come back alive. Marco pulled her into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. Always, I'll always come back to you. That night, Vincent drove Lena to the mountain house while Marco stayed behind to wage war she wasn't allowed to witness. She spent 3 days in isolated luxury, studying to distract herself, knowing that somewhere in the city, the man she loved was doing terrible things to protect her. When Marco finally arrived, he looked exhausted and hollow, like something inside him had broken. He didn't speak about what happened, didn't confirm the news reports of Anthony Moretti's death in a tragic accident. Just held Lena in silence while she chose not to ask questions she didn't want answered. It's done, he said eventually. You're safe now. Completely safe. Lena knew what that safety cost. Knew blood had been spilled in her name. Knew Marco had become exactly who he'd always been. Ruthless, violent, uncompromising, to eliminate a threat to her life. And she loved him anyway, chose him anyway. Accepted it all because the alternative was losing him. That was the moment Lena finally understood the full weight of her choice. Loving Marco DeLuca meant accepting violence done in her name, meant living with blood on the edges of their beautiful life, meant becoming complicit through silence in acts she could never condone. But it also meant being cherished completely, protected absolutely, loved with an intensity that would burn the world to keep her safe. As Marco fell asleep beside her, his body finally relaxing after days of tension, Lena stared at the ceiling and accepted her truth. She'd chosen darkness willingly, had walked into it with open eyes. And whatever that made her, accomplice, wife, survivor, she was Marco's completely, for better or worse, in light and shadow, until death finally separated what violence and love had bound together. The weeks following Anthony Moretti's death brought a strange, fragile peace. Marco became quieter, more introspective, like killing his former mentor had cost him something fundamental. He still held Lena every night, still asked about her classes and studies, still looked at her with devotion that bordered on worship. But there was a distance in his eyes sometimes, a darkness that hadn't been there before. Lena returned to nursing school determined to reclaim normalcy, but normal felt like a costume that no longer fit. Her classmates treated her differently now, some with fear, others with fascination, all with the knowledge that she'd married into darkness and chosen to stay. She'd become someone they whispered about instead of someone they knew. You seem distracted today, her anatomy professor commented after class one afternoon. Professor Chen was older, kind, one of the few who still treated Lena like a student instead of a curiosity. Everything all right? Lena forced a smile. Just tired, long night studying. Your grades are excellent, Lena. Top of the class, actually. But I worry about you. Professor Chen's voice dropped. This life you've chosen, it's not easy. Make sure you're taking care of yourself too, not just surviving. The kindness nearly broke her. Lena nodded, not trusting her voice, and left before the tears could fall. In the parking lot, Vincent waited by the car, his presence a constant reminder that she was never truly alone, never truly free. Home, Miss Moore. Mrs. DeLuca, Lena corrected automatically. She'd been using her maiden name at school, trying to maintain some separation between her two lives. But the correction felt important suddenly, an acknowledgement of who she really was. And yes, take me home. At the penthouse, she found Marco in his office, staring out at the city with a whiskey in hand. Something about his posture made her pause in the doorway. Bad day? She asked softly. Marco turned, and the look on his face stole her breath. Grief. Raw and unconcealed. He set down his whiskey and crossed to her, pulling her into his arms like she was the only thing keeping him upright. I killed him, he said against her hair. My mentor, the man who taught me everything. And I don't feel anything except relief that you're safe. Marco, what does that make me, Lena? What kind of man kills without remorse as long as the reason is good enough? She pulled back to look at him, at this powerful man who ruled through fear but was breaking in her arms. It makes you human, complicated. Someone doing terrible things for reasons that matter to you. That's not enough. That's not... He stopped, his jaw working. I used to have lines. Things I wouldn't do, people I wouldn't hurt. But I'd cross any line for you. Do anything to keep you safe. And I don't know if that's love or obsession or something darker. Lena cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. It's love. Messy, imperfect, dangerous love. But it's real, Marco. What we have is real. Is it? Or have I just trapped you so completely you can't see another option? The question hung between them, sharp and honest. Lena thought about the past months, the transformation from invisible waitress to the wife of the city's most feared man. The choices she'd made, the compromises she'd accepted, the blood spilled in her name. You didn't trap me, she said finally. I chose this. Choose it every day. Yes, you've given me things I needed, security, education, purpose. But I stay because I love you. Because when I imagine my life without you, it feels empty no matter how free it might be. You deserve better than this. Better than me. Maybe, but I don't want better. I want you. Lena kissed him softly. Stop trying to save me from yourself, Marco. I know exactly who you are. I'm not some naive girl anymore. I'm your wife, your partner, and I accept all of it. Marco kissed her back with desperation, like he was trying to convince himself her words were true. They made love right there in his office, urgent and almost violent, both of them needing to feel alive and connected after weeks of darkness. Afterward, wrapped in his arms on the leather couch, Lena spoke the truth she'd been avoiding. I want to finish nursing school, get my degree, work in a hospital, and help people. She felt Marco tense. I need something that's mine, Marco, something separate from your world. Can you give me that? You know I can't promise your career won't be touched by who I am. People will recognize your name, make assumptions, treat you differently. I know, but I need to try. Need to prove I'm more than just your wife, more than the woman you protect and provide for. Lena turned to face him. I need to prove to myself I still exist as my own person. Marco was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing patterns on her skin. Okay, you finish school, you work, you build your career. I won't interfere directly, but Lena, I can't turn off my protection, can't stop watching over you, can't stop eliminating threats if they emerge. I'm not asking you to, just let me have this one thing that's mine. It's already yours. Everything is yours. He kissed her forehead. I just hope you still want it when you realize how complicated it is being married to me while trying to live a normal life. Lena hoped so too. The next year passed in a strange duality. By day, Lena was a nursing student and then a newly graduated RN working in a major hospital's emergency department. She was competent, compassionate, good at her job. Her colleagues knew who she'd married, but mostly treated her professionally. Perhaps because the hospital's board had significant financial ties to Marco's legitimate businesses, and knew better than to create problems. By night, she was Mrs. DeLuca, wife to a man whose empire continued to grow through methods she chose not to examine too closely. Marco kept his promise. He didn't interfere with her career, didn't use his influence to advance her, but his protection was constant and invisible, ensuring no one harassed her, threatened her, or made her work environment unsafe. "You're good at this," her supervising nurse, Patricia, commented during a particularly brutal shift. They just saved a gunshot victim, Lena's hands steady and sure throughout the crisis. "Natural instincts, calm under pressure. You're going to be excellent." "Thank you." Lena stripped off her gloves, the adrenaline slowly fading. "It feels right, like this is what I was always supposed to do." "Even knowing some of these patients might be connected to your husband's world?" The question was blunt but not unkind. Patricia had worked ER for 20 years and seen everything. She knew exactly what Marco DeLuca was, and she knew Lena knew too. "Especially then," Lena said quietly. "I can't change what Marco does, but I can help the people caught in the crossfire. Maybe that's my way of balancing the scales." Patricia nodded slowly. "Just be careful you don't get caught in that crossfire yourself. Men like your husband, they protect fiercely, but that protection comes with a price." "I know. I'm paying it." The price came due 3 months later when a patient was brought in, stabbed multiple times, barely clinging to life. Lena recognized him immediately, despite the blood and damage. Michael, Marco's former second-in-command who'd betrayed him during the federal investigation. The man Marco had exiled instead of killing because Lena asked for mercy. "I need a doctor," Lena called, her voice professional despite her racing heart. Multiple stab wounds, significant blood loss, BP dropping. She worked on Michael automatically, her training overriding the personal connection, stabilized his vitals, got IV lines in, relayed information to the trauma surgeon. Through it all, Michael's eyes found hers, recognition and fear warring in his expression. "Please," he gasped when they were briefly alone. "Don't tell him. Don't tell Marco I'm here. I'm your nurse right now, not his wife." Lena adjusted his IV. "But you need to tell me who did this. Were you attacked randomly or was this targeted?" "Does it matter? If Marco finds out I'm back in the city, I'm dead anyway." "You were exiled. You came back." Lena kept her voice neutral. "Why?" "I had nowhere else to go. Thought enough time had passed. Thought maybe—" Michael coughed, blood flecking his lips. "I was wrong. Someone recognized me. Did this as a message." Lena finished her assessment and stepped back, letting the trauma team take over. Michael was right. If Marco found out he'd violated exile, the man would be dead within hours. And Lena had the power to either inform her husband or stay silent. She made it through her shift on autopilot, then called Marco from the hospital parking lot. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen before you react." Marco's voice instantly sharpened. "Are you all right?" "I'm fine, but Michael is here. In my ER. Someone stabbed him." Silence. Then Marco's voice, cold and controlled. "He violated exile." "Yes, and someone already punished him for it. He's barely alive, Marco. He might not make it through the night." "Good." He was warned what would happen if he returned. "I know, but I'm asking you to let this go. He's already suffering, already paying the price. Don't make me watch you kill a patient I helped save." "You think I'd put you in that position? I'd wait until he was discharged, then handle it quietly. Or you could show mercy again. Prove that exile meant something, that your word has meaning beyond threats." Lena took a breath. "He came back because he had nowhere else. That's already a kind of hell, isn't it? Being so broken and desperate you risk death just to come home?" "He's not coming home. He's trespassing in my territory. Your territory is also my workplace. The hospital where I'm trying to build a career separate from your business." Lena's voice hardened. "If you kill him, if you make my ER into a crime scene, you're dragging my world into yours. Is that really what you want?" She heard Marco breathe slowly, clearly fighting his instincts. "What are you asking me to do?" "Let him recover, then have Vincent escort him out of the city again. Make it clear this is his last chance. But don't kill him in my hospital, Marco. Please." "You're asking for a lot of mercy for a man who betrayed me." I'm asking you to respect the boundary between our lives, to let me save people without wondering if you'll kill them later. Lena softened her voice. I know it goes against your nature, but I need this. Another long silence. Then Marco said quietly, he gets escorted out when he's stable. If he ever comes back again, I don't care where he is or who's treating him. He dies. That's the compromise, Lena. Take it or leave it. I'll take it. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just remember that every time you ask for mercy, you're asking me to be weaker than I need to be to survive. He paused. I love you. But there's a limit to how many times I can choose your morality over my safety. The call ended, leaving Lena standing in the dark parking lot with the weight of what she'd asked settling on her shoulders. How many times could she pull Marco toward light before he refused to follow? How many compromises could he make before something in him broke? She didn't have answers, just hoped their love was strong enough to survive the tension between who he was and who she needed him to be. Michael recovered slowly over the next 2 weeks. Lena avoided his room when possible, letting other nurses handle his care. But on his final day before discharge, she found herself checking his chart, ensuring everything was in order. Thank you, Michael said when she entered to remove his IV. For saving my life, for convincing Marco to let me live. I didn't do it for you. I did it for me, for the sanctity of my workplace. Lena worked efficiently, not meeting his eyes. Vincent is waiting to escort you out of the city. Don't come back. Not ever. I won't. I learned my lesson. Michael caught her hand as she turned to leave. He's lucky to have you, Marco. Someone who makes him better than he'd be alone. I don't make him better. I just occasionally convince him to show restraint. Lena pulled free. Take care of yourself, Michael, and stay away from this city. Next time I won't intervene. She left before he could respond, before the complexity of the situation could overwhelm her. She'd saved a man who'd betrayed her husband, had asked Marco to spare him twice, had drawn a line between their worlds and demanded he respect it. And Marco had agreed, had chosen her peace over his vengeance. That had to mean something. That evening, Marco was waiting when she got home, his expression unreadable. It's done. Michael is gone. Vincent personally drove him to the airport and watched him board a plane to Seattle. Marco moved to her, his hands gentle on her shoulders. But I need you to understand something, Lena. That was the last time. No more asking for mercy. No more pulling me toward light when darkness is what keeps us safe. I understand. Do you? Because I've bent every instinct I have for you, shown restraint when I should have shown force. Let people live who should have died. And I've done it because I love you, because your morality matters to me. But it's making me weak in a world where weakness gets you killed. Lena heard the frustration, the fear beneath his words. I'm not trying to make you weak. I'm trying to help you see there are other options besides violence. Options that work in your world, not mine. Marco's grip tightened slightly. My world operates on fear and respect. When I show mercy, people see vulnerability. When I let betrayers live, it encourages others to try. You're asking me to transform how I do business, and that transformation could cost us everything. Or it could build something better, something that lasts beyond fear. There is nothing beyond fear in my business. That's the foundation everything else is built on. He released her, stepping back. I love you. I'll keep trying to be the man you want, but you need to accept that I might fail, that circumstances might demand the ruthless bastard I actually am, not the reformed version you're hoping I'll become. The words hurt because they were true. Lena had been trying to change Marco, to pull him away from violence through love and moral persuasion. But fundamental nature didn't change. She could influence him temporarily, convince him to show occasional mercy. But the core of who he was, the man who'd built an empire through intimidation and force, remained unchanged. I'm not trying to change you, she said quietly. I'm just trying to love you without losing myself. And I'm trying to let you do that without getting us both killed. Marco pulled her into his arms. We're both walking impossible lines, Lena, trying to blend worlds that don't mix. Eventually, something's going to give. She knew he was right, knew the tension between her morality and his methods couldn't sustain indefinitely. But she also knew that loving him meant accepting the complexity, the compromise, the constant negotiation between light and darkness. Then we'll deal with it when it gives, together. Lena looked up at him. That's what marriage is, right? Navigating impossible situations and choosing each other anyway? Marco's smile was soft and sad. I hope you still choose me when things get truly impossible. I will. I already have. Every day I stay, I'm choosing you. They held each other as night fell over the city. Two people bound by love that shouldn't work, but somehow did. Imperfect, complicated, dangerous love that demanded constant sacrifice and compromise. But love, nonetheless. The months that followed brought a rhythm to their lives. Lena worked long shifts at the hospital, saving lives and finding purpose in healing. Marco managed his empire with slightly more restraint than before, occasionally consulting her before making decisions that involved violence. They fought sometimes about his methods, about the blood on the edges of their beautiful life, but they also laughed, made love, built a partnership that was real despite being unconventional. On their first wedding anniversary, the real one, not the rushed legal ceremony from the investigation, Marco surprised her with the wedding he'd promised. Small but perfect, held in a private garden with close friends who had accepted their unusual relationship. Catherine was there. Vincent stood as Marco's best man, and Patricia from the hospital served as Lena's maid of honor. I promised you a better wedding, Marco said when they were alone during the reception. When the investigation was over, when things were safer. I keep my promises, Lena. She looked around at the beautiful space, at the life they'd built together, at the man who'd destroyed enemies and shown mercy in equal measure because she asked, You keep the promises that matter, that's enough. Is it? Is this life enough for you? Lena thought about the question honestly. A year ago, she'd been invisible, exhausted, alone. Now she was seen, cherished, part of something bigger than herself. Yes, that something included darkness and violence and moral compromises. But it also included love that was absolute, protection that was unwavering, a partnership that challenged her to be stronger than she'd ever imagined. It's enough, she said firmly. You're enough. This life we're building, messy and imperfect and sometimes terrifying, it's enough. Marco kissed her then, soft and reverent, like she was something precious he still couldn't quite believe he got to keep. Around them, their small gathering of guests applauded, and for one perfect moment, Lena let herself feel purely happy. The moment couldn't last forever. Reality never allowed that luxury. But it was enough to sustain her through the challenges that would inevitably come. Enough to remind her why she'd chosen this path, this man, this impossible life. As the evening wound down and guests departed, Marco led Lena to the edge of the garden where the city light sparkled below. I have something for you, he said, pulling an envelope from his jacket. Your anniversary gift. Inside was a deed to a small clinic in an underserved neighborhood, fully equipped and funded, with Lena's name as director. I know you love the ER, Marco said quietly, but I also know you want to help people who fall through the cracks. People like you used to be, struggling and invisible. This gives you that chance. Your own clinic, your own staff. No connection to me beyond the initial funding. Lena stared at the deed, tears burning her eyes. Marco, this is too much. It's not enough. It'll never be enough to balance what you've given me. Your love, your acceptance, your willingness to see the man beneath the monster. His voice roughened. You make me want to be better. Even if I fail most of the time, you make me want to try. This clinic is me trying. I don't know what to say. Say you'll run it. Say you'll build something good in this city where so much is corrupt and broken. Say you'll be the light that makes this darkness bearable. Marco turned her to face him. Say you'll keep choosing me, even when I don't deserve it. I'll run it. I'll build something good. And I'll keep choosing you. Lena kissed him, pouring everything she felt into the connection. Always, no matter what comes. What came was time. Months became years. Lena's clinic flourished, serving hundreds of patients who couldn't afford traditional health care. She built a reputation as a healer who treated everyone with dignity, who never asked questions about how someone got injured, who created safe space in a dangerous city. Marco's empire continued to grow, but more quietly now. He'd learned the value of subtlety, of building legitimate businesses alongside the illegal ones, of using influence instead of violence when possible. He still made hard decisions, still protected what was his with ruthless efficiency. But he consulted Lena before the worst of it, gave her the chance to argue for mercy, occasionally listened when her arguments made strategic sense. They fought sometimes, passionate arguments about methods and morality that left both of them frustrated. But they also loved fiercely, built a home together, created a life that worked despite being impossible. Marco attended her clinic's anniversary celebrations, donated anonymously to hospital programs, showed up to her achievements like he was proud to be associated with her success. And Lena accepted the full complexity of who he was. Stopped trying to change his fundamental nature and instead focused on loving him completely. The man who killed to protect her, and the man who held her gently through nightmares. The ruthless criminal and the devoted husband. All of it. All of him. 5 years after that first spilled water glass, Lena stood in their penthouse holding a positive pregnancy test, her hands shaking with the weight of what it meant. She was bringing a child into this world, into this life, into the darkness and light they'd created together. Marco found her like that, frozen and terrified, and he knew immediately. "We're having a baby," she whispered. His expression transformed, fear and joy and overwhelming love all at once. He pulled her into his arms, held her like she was the most precious thing in the world. "I'm scared," Lena admitted, "of what kind of life this is for a child, of the dangers, the complications, the choices they'll have to make about who their father is." "I know. I'm terrified too." Marco's voice was rough. "But I swear to you, Lena, I'll protect them with everything I have. I'll give them every opportunity, every advantage, every chance at a good life. And I'll teach them to be strong enough to choose their own path, even if it's different from mine." "You promise?" "I promise. The way I promise to give you a better wedding, the way I promise to protect you always. I keep my promises to you, Lena, and I'll keep them to our child too." She believed him, because for all his darkness, all his violence, all the terrible things he'd done, Marco had never broken a promise to her, had given her everything he said he would, had loved her with absolute devotion even when she challenged him, argued with him, demanded he be better than his nature allowed. "Okay," Lena said, letting hope override fear. "Okay, we're doing this. Building a family in our impossible life. Building everything." Marco's hand settled over her still, flat stomach, his touch gentle and reverent. "Our family, our future, our legacy. Something that lasts beyond both of us." The baby, a girl they named Sarah, arrived 8 months later, perfect and healthy and absolutely loved. Marco was terrified of holding her at first, afraid his violent, scarred hands would somehow damage something so pure. But watching him finally cradle their daughter, seeing his hard expression soften into wonder, Lena knew they'd be okay. They'd navigate the impossible together. Would teach their daughter to be strong and compassionate, to understand nuance and make her own moral choices. Would give her every advantage while letting her find her own path. Would love her the way they loved each other, completely, complicatedly, without reservation. On Sarah's first birthday, Lena stood in the penthouse watching Marco play with their daughter, both of them laughing at some game only they understood. The city spread below them, dark and dangerous and beautiful. Her clinic was thriving. His empire was stable. Their family was whole. Patricia appeared at her elbow, one of the guests at their daughter's party, having become a close friend over the years. "You did it," Patricia said quietly. "Built something good out of darkness. Created light in the middle of chaos." Lena thought about the journey that had brought her here. From invisible waitress to the wife of the city's most powerful man. From struggling alone to building a family and career that mattered. From fearing darkness to accepting it as part of a complicated whole. "We did it together," she corrected. "Marco and me. He's not the monster people think he is, and I'm not the victim they assume I must be. We're just two people who found each other at exactly the right moment and chose to build something that shouldn't work, but somehow does." "That's love," Patricia said simply. "The real kind. Messy and imperfect and absolutely worth fighting for." Marco looked up then, caught Lena's eye across the room, and smiled. That devastating smile that still made her breath catch after all these years. He mouthed, "I love you," while their daughter pulled at his hair, completely at ease in her father's arms despite the violence those arms had wrought. Lena smiled back, mouthing the words in return, and felt peace settle in her chest. This was her life, her choice, her love. Dangerous, possessive, absolute. Built on blood and devotion in equal measure. Imperfect and impossible, and entirely hers. She'd been invisible once, a waitress who spilled water on a stranger and thought he was just a wealthy traveler. She'd been so wrong. Marco DeLuca wasn't just anyone. He was the man who'd seen her when everyone else looked through her, who'd given her everything she needed and things she didn't know to want, who'd killed for her and shown mercy because she asked, who'd loved her with an intensity that transformed both their lives. And she'd been invisible once, but never again. Now she was seen, cherished, whole. Now she was Mrs. Lena DeLuca, healer and wife and mother, living an impossible life with the only man she'd ever truly loved, the invisible girl and the wrong man. Except he'd been exactly right, and she'd been strong enough to choose him despite everything, to build a life in darkness and light, to create something beautiful from chaos. 5 years ago, a single spilled drink changed everything. Today, watching her husband play with their daughter while their friends celebrated around them, Lena knew that change had been worth it. Every compromise, every choice, every moment of fear and doubt, all of it leading to this perfect, imperfect moment. She crossed the room to join her family, Marco pulling her down beside him, Sarah climbing into her lap with delighted squeals. The three of them together, laughing and whole, exactly where they belonged, from invisible to untouchable, from alone to loved absolutely, from broke and struggling to building a legacy that would outlast them both. Lena Moore, now Lena DeLuca, had found her place in the world. And it was here, wrapped in the arms of a dangerous man who'd chosen to be gentle with her. Here, in a life that balanced healing and hurting. Here, in love that was real and complicated and entirely worth every risk she'd taken to claim it. The city lights glittered below as night fell, and Lena held her family close, knowing tomorrow would bring new challenges and compromises. Knowing their life would never be simple or easy. Knowing she'd chosen it all willingly and would choose it again every single day. This was love. This was family. This was everything she'd never known she needed until a handsome stranger watched her too closely and decided she was worth saving. She'd thought he was just a wealthy traveler passing through. She'd been so beautifully, perfectly wrong. And that mistake, that single moment of spilled water and apology, had given her everything. Marco kissed her temple, whispered, "Thank you for choosing me," against her hair, and Lena felt her heart swell with certainty. She'd choose him always, in darkness and light, for better or worse, until death finally claimed what love had built. And that was more than enough. It was everything.